local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, April 1st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -1 degree. Feels like -8. In Smiths Falls, it's 0. Now here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The province is about to go into the gray zone. This will be a province-wide restriction to be announced this afternoon at about 1:30 by the Premier. Before that, at 10 o'clock, we're expecting the new COVID modelling numbers. Now, with more on the grey zone, here's City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
The only real change for Toronto and Peel region, both already in grey lockdown for a lengthy period, in fact, in some cases since November, will be an end to patio service at restaurants, which essentially just got underway in the last couple of weeks. So really not much of a change in the two hot zones of Ontario. In all other regions, as of this weekend, indoor dining has to end. Gyms will close along with hair salons, barbershops, many other businesses as well. Retail outlets, however, can remain open with a 25% limit on the number of customers allowed in stores. Premier Doug Ford to make the official announcement today after a lengthy cabinet meeting last night. At this point, sources are suggesting that schools will remain open after the Easter holiday weekend. What happens beyond that, and especially after the delayed spring break, remains to be seen. Now, the shutdown will last 28 days in an effort to slow down the alarming spike in COVID-19 cases. It's threatening to swamp hospitals and intensive care units. COVID-19 infections have jumped 110% in the last month and 45% in just the last 10 days. I'm Kevin Meisner.
Now, we'll have more on the school plans in just a moment, but first, your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
It was 3 degrees early this morning. That's our high for the day. A few flurries around, but we'll get into some clearing for the afternoon. The bulk of the snow to the east. For tonight, a few flurries possible. -7 for the low. It'll feel like -15. And for the Easter long weekend, plenty of sunshine. It will get milder, too. For today, I already reached the high 3.
And right now in Ottawa, -1. It feels like -8. In Smiths Falls, it's 0. Now, it is expected schools will continue to be open under the new gray zone rules, but Ottawa, Carleton, and Upper Canada boards both encouraging students, staff, and parents to be prepared for remote learning. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
The OCDSB sent out a letter to parents Wednesday evening urging students and staff to regularly take home personal items needed for remote learning to ensure a smooth transition if and when that becomes necessary. According to the letter, the board wasn't directed by the Ontario government to switch to learning from home or modify the break slated from April 12th to 16th, but feels recent weeks have solidified the need to be able to adapt quickly. The OCDSB is also hammering home Ottawa Public Health's message for the long weekend. Now is not the time for visits with family or friends, and limit contacts to those in the same house. More details on the letter are available at ottawa.citynews.ca. The Upper Canada District School Board is also encouraging students and staff to take home items needed to switch to remote learning in the event of any changes after Easter or for the spring break. Alex Gouge, City News.
Now, how are students doing with the 3 R's with all this disruption in their learning? Well, students at the Upper Canada Board are doing very well. The board says credit completion among high school students is on the upswing, even when compared to pre-pandemic numbers. Earlier this month, staff presented the board with credit completion data for grade 9 to 12 students during Quadmester 2. 93% pass rate. Data shows students in remote learning have a lower chance of passing a course, though, just 79% of students with successful completion there. And it is opening day in Major League Baseball and opening day for the Toronto Blue Jays playing the Yankees in New York, a 3-game series. To start the series, you can hear this game and every Blue Jay game right here on City News 101.1, opening pitch today just after 1 o'clock. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Thursday. We made it. Made it to April. Made it to the Easter long weekend. And what is our reward for making it this far? Lockdown. Isn't that great? Just super. This is the Rob Snow Show, City News. I don't know what to say. I mean, where do you begin? Where do you begin on a day like this? Because, I can't believe it. I can't believe it that this is where we are. I said this was where we were going to end up, but I can't believe this is where we are. And that we're going to have to go through this again. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm looking over there at David, my producer, good friend and producer. We're the lucky ones, okay? This hardly affects us at all. We still get up in the morning and we come to work, okay? We don't lose paychecks. And, personally, it's just me and Jen and the dog at home. We don't have little children trying to do a whole school year online. A whole school year online. We don't own a restaurant. Your patio can be open. No, now you have to close it. Oh, your dining room can be open. No, now you have to close it. You could just do your patio. Oh, we don't have to do any of that. We're not being constantly put through this meat grinder of uncertainty and indecision and incompetence. And now so many of our entrepreneurs and be forced again to endure another month of this. It's been more than a year of this pandemic, and look at where we are and what we're talking about today. Lockdown. To be made official 1:30 this afternoon, the Premier scheduled the news conference, the Daily Doug. Oh, I'm in it for the little guy, and it pains me to do it, but I have no choice. Oh, emergency break. I'm in it for the little guy, so you go Costco, you go Loblaws, you go Walmart. I love it that they're not even calling it a lockdown now. They're not even calling it a lockdown now. I guess they've learned, that maybe they've done a focus group, right? What do you think of the word lockdown? Ding, 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 ding. Alarm bells keep going off, right? It's a dirty word. People are sick of hearing a dirty word. So they're not calling it a lockdown. They're calling it, get a load of this, shutdown. Oh, it's a shutdown. Oh, okay. Like a carbon tax is a price on pollution. A lockdown isn't a lockdown anymore. It's a shutdown. Look, whatever you want to call it, play your stupid word games. We've seen it before. And now any of us, all we can do is hope and pray, fingers crossed, that this is the last time we have to do it. And that by early May, whatever restrictions are going to be imposed today will be lifted. Will be lifted, right? Maybe they have circled the May 2 for a long weekend on the calendar. Maybe they're telling themselves, let's aim to get life back to normal by that long weekend. Okay? Because this long weekend is a total write-off. It is just, it's so tiring. It's so infuriating. It's been more than a year. And it's like some political leaders, it's like they haven't learned a gosh darn thing. It's like some people haven't learned a gosh darn thing. Or they've just stopped listening and they've decided, forget about you. I'm going to do my own gosh darn thing. I'm driving home yesterday. My show finishes shortly after 12 noon. Lots of traffic on the Queensway. Like 10 after 12 yesterday afternoon. This new giant tiger, fancy new giant tiger around the corner here, they're doing a booming business. It's like Wednesday at noon. What are you people doing out there? I'm thinking to myself, this is the red zone. We're supposed to be in the red zone, right? Restrict. Who are all of you people, and what are you doing outside? Wherever it is you've been going, it's about to stop now because now we're going into the gray zone. As of this weekend. Like I predicted. As I've been talking about for days. Here it is. Because all of the benchmarks, they're just worse than they were during the last lockdown. That came into effect on Boxing Day. Aren't you just sick of all this stuff? lockdowns and shutdowns and stay-at-home orders and this zone and that zone and gray, red, orange, yellow, and green. Now they're talking about a white zone. They're going to have a white zone. Curfews in Quebec. It's like our governments, they're just out of ideas. Open, cases go up. Close, cases go down. Okay, let's try it again. Let's open things up. What do you think's going to happen? Okay, well, let's close things down. Open up, close down, open up, close down, rinse, repeat. It's April, right? This is April now. And we have been doing vaccinations in this country since December 14th of 2020. December 14th of 2020. 3.5 months. And you know, today, not even 2% of Canada's population is fully vaccinated. And I mean fully vaccinated. Not this half-vaccinated stuff. Fully vaccinated. 1.8% of the Canadian population is fully vaccinated 3.5 months after the first doses went into the first arms. Is that what you call success? In the United States, it's more than 15% of the American population is now fully vaccinated. 15%. Tens of millions of Americans are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. In the United Kingdom, more than 45% of Brits have had at least one dose of vaccine. Almost half of Britain's population has had at least one dose of vaccine. The same number in Canada is 12%. New poll out today. Justin Trudeau headed for a landslide victory for his handling of the pandemic. Oh, okay. Wherever people can hear my voice over the radio airwaves this morning, we're going into another lockdown. Victory. How is it that more than 3 months after the first doses were administered in this country, how is it, I ask you, how is it that we have not managed to give 2 doses of vaccine to every single frontline healthcare worker in Canada? For shame. For shame. Is there anyone working harder? I remember it wasn't all that long ago, people used to go out on their steps and patios and clap their hands and bang pots and pans together and honk their horns to say thank you for the hard work and the sacrifice of our frontline healthcare workers. I thank you today. Now they're working as hard as ever with 420 some odd patients in ICU and across Ontario right now. I talked to the CEO of the Heart Institute yesterday. He told me he has about 650 of his staff, the so-called patient-facing healthcare workers, half vaccinated. Half vaccinated. That is a failure of leadership. So here we go, another month of this, totally predictable and avoidable. Another month of misery and isolation and loneliness and economic carnage and mental anguish, with no guarantee it will even work or even be the last lockdown we face. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's a space that needs to be lived in. It's a space that people, have to have an experience of more than just art on the walls. I think, yes, the art on the walls is fun, and it's fun to walk around and see all the beautiful things, and the way Dominic and Edith have curated the gallery is certainly something worth seeing. But coming by and asking questions, again, to Dominic's point of view is, interrupt him, ask questions. I'm here on most of the days too. We have Luce that comes in, Nancy that comes in. So we have quite a few opportunities for people to come in and, see the process and of course, ask a few questions. It's a great space. Basically the one event that we did do, is the jazz shows, the jazz and blues shows. And I think the weird thing to let you know is that the acoustics in here are really amazing. I think that was the first thing that blew me away when we started doing shows, or when I was helping out with the shows. And the other part of the business too is we do rent it out for special occasions too. So a few weddings, birthday parties, product launches, that kind of thing. So they're also a lot of fun. We do have one artist that's from the States, but of the 30 odd artists, the rest are from either Quebec, Ontario, and one beautiful woman from BC. But yeah, it's definitely part of the philosophy to maintain and canvas and show the beauty that we have in our backyard. You have the very, very strong personalities in Edith and Dominic, of course. It's wonderful to see how that actually balances out in the rest of the gallery. Without necessarily being, an objective, we basically have half female artists and half male artists in this gallery. But I can't say it's anything more than choosing the best people, and that's just the way it is. And I love that. I think it's great. You go through and you're like, wow, it's all pretty cool. And yep, it's half are women and half are men. It's cool. Like everyone else, we didn't know what to think, right? It's overwhelming at first. You just know that things are closed. And now you're trying to figure out what you do during that downtime, which I think everyone did. And I think in March, the first close, the first shutdown, it was a lot of actually recuperating and resting and not worrying too much on the spot. It's running a gallery is a bit like running a marathon with sprints. So there comes a time where, it's actually nice to just take a break. And then you wake up and realize that, okay, now it's time to wake up and deal with this new reality. From my perspective anyways, I think a gallery can be overwhelming, and I like to make it fun. So you're going to come in, I'll ask you questions, I might even joke around with you. The most people come here, they're not really going to buy art, but they could have a fun time and talk about it, right? And one of the things the gallery does offer is for local purchases, we'll be happy to drive it to your house and hang it for you.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Okay, so I'm a bit fired up. So here to calm me down, my morning sedative is the legendary Lowell Green. Good morning.
You've done an excellent job, I think, in expressing the frustration and the anger. I am sure that that's the sentiment of 95% of residents of this city and this province and probably this country. And if it's not the sentiment, it bloody well should be. I mean, this is especially galling here in Ottawa because there's no question that, and I mean this literally, hundreds of thousands of residents of this city would love to have one vaccine shot, let alone two, for goodness sake. But they can't. I mean, here we are, we're being held hostage. We're pawns, innocent pawns in a game of stupidity and incompetence that all we need are more vaccine. We need vaccines. But I want to tell you, and I use my wife as just one example, because there are thousands of others trying to do exactly the same thing. Monday morning, we were told in Ottawa that if you're 70 plus, just give us a call or go to the web and we'll book you for a vaccine. Well, within about 15 minutes, that there were apparently only 12,000 doses available. So within minutes of 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock Monday morning, whatever, they were all solidly booked. And apparently we haven't received any more vaccines since Monday, because every single morning my wife, and I'm sure thousands of others, phone, email, whatever the hell, try to get booked. No, nothing available. Nothing available in Ottawa, nothing available in Arnprior, Renfrew, Elmont, all of the valley. I mean, we're prepared to drive 100 miles, for God's sake, so that my wife can get her first vaccine. You can't get it. And this is why, and so now we've got a lockdown because we can't get vaccinated in this city and in this province. You're right, less than 2% of people in Canada have received both vaccine shots. In other words, have been fully vaccinated. I mean, this is why we've got lockdowns. And there's still some people don't seem to be able to link the two. If, in fact, we had everybody vaccinated, particularly fully vaccinated, or even if we had a fair share of the population, we would not be in a lockdown. We wouldn't have this bloody disaster. But I'm going to tell you something else, Rob. I mean, we have been told so many things. They have changed their minds. They have screwed around, messed around, demonstrated stupidity and incompetence. I'm talking at about every level of government and the healthcare system, to a point where I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't some sort of revolution. I mean, they're asking for widespread civil disobedience. Who the hell do you believe? I mean, right from day one, we were told, for example, I remember it very well, there's nothing to worry about. It's just, it will just have minor consequence in Canada. 5 days later, we're all told we have to, it's a terrible emergency. You know, you don't need, Dr. Tam, here's Dr. Tam paying her all kinds of money. Oh, you know, you don't have to wear a mask. No, then, you know, a little bit later, oh yes, we've got to wear a mask. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Wrong information, incompetence, stupidity, and who pays the price? You and I, the ordinary pawns. And yet, here we are. We want to get vaccinated, but there's no bloody vaccine available for us. In Toronto, as you know, they set up major vaccination clinics, one in the Wonderland. Okay, they're supposed to be, Trudeau has been talking about this huge vaccine rollout. Well, where the hell is it? Where the hell is it? Since Monday, we've had 12,000 vaccine doses, all administered apparently on Monday. No more. It's now Thursday. Will there be some delivered tomorrow? Who the hell knows? I must tell you something else. But not only that, my wife, and I'm sure thousands of others, we were told, she was told, well, you'll be able to get vaccinated at the pharmacy. Give the pharmacy a call. Yep. So about two weeks ago, she phones our pharmacy, books an appointment. They say, well, when we get the vaccine, we'll call you. No calls. So yesterday she calls you, and you know what the pharmacy said? What? We have no idea. We have no idea when these vaccines are coming in. Nobody will talk to us. We don't know. We have no idea when we're going to get them. This is beautiful. She can't get vaccinated anywhere in the entire Ottawa Valley because there are no vaccines. Supposed to call the pharmacies. The pharmacy has no idea what the hell is going on. This is called competence. I mean, and then what is our reward for all of this? Another lockdown, another economic disaster, more isolation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is unconscionable because we don't have vaccines. In Toronto, I started to say this, they've canceled several of these supposed to be this major mass vaccination. They've canceled them, and they've shut down Wonderland and 2 or 3 other places in Peel, et cetera, et cetera. Why? There's no vaccines. No vaccines. And by the way, for those people, some of the liberals who are claiming, oh, well, this is because Ford has got them all locked up in a freezer someplace. I just got the figure, and I'm sure you have it as well. Ontario right now has used 93.14% of all the vaccines that it has received.
Right.
So that 93.
Whatever is in the freezer has somebody's name on it. There's an appointment attached to whatever is in the freezer.
Precisely. 93.14% of all vaccines received in the province of Ontario are now in somebody's arms. The problem is there aren't nearly enough. And there are thousands. You know what? I'll bet you, our population in Ottawa is 1 million or so. I'll bet you that 90% of people in this city, certainly over age 16, would jump at the chance for a vaccine. We can't. If we had fully vaccinated people in this city, I repeat, we wouldn't have the lockdown. This is incompetence of the worst kind. And you mentioned the fact that the latest polls indicate that most people think that Trudeau's doing a great job. I mean, it's unbelievable. Where is this? We're told about this vaccine rollout, this giant rollout. Where is it? Where is it? We've been told this for I don't know how many times about the millions, hundreds of millions of vaccines.
You could get vaccinated 5 times if you needed to.
Precisely. Where are they? Where's the big... No, but there'll be a slight delay, yes, et cetera, et cetera. Don't worry, folks. Everything will be just fine. We'll have the big rollout now. The big rollout will start in March. Well, where the hell is it? 12,000 vaccines for a city of 1 million people? That's all we get. This is just for people 70 and over. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Look, I want to ask you as well. We're going to play a clip. We interviewed, as I said yesterday, the CEO of the Ottawa Heart Institute, following up on a front page story in the Ottawa Citizen.
What a mess there, right? Okay.
But what an advocate for his staff. I mean, you can hear the frustration in his voice. We're going to play this tape here. It's just a quick clip. Dr. Thierry Mesana.
We have been in this for 1 year, okay? This is the time where we need to support our staff and the healthcare workers and show them we do everything we can to protect them. You don't send soldiers to war without proper equipment. So when we have these people in hospitals, they save people's life. You know, they go to the hospital to work to save others people's life. You need to make sure they have the maximum protection. And if a second dose gives you 10-15% more, give them the second dose.
Yeah. What do you think of that? You've been a patient. You've been a patient there. So
yeah, it's unbelievable. The 14 members of his staff, frontline staff at the Heart Institute, have come down with COVID after receiving their first dose. And so very, very clearly, in order to be fully vaccinated, fully protected, or at least 95%, you must have the second dose, and particularly as it applies to frontline workers. But there's a message here for us all. My second dose, I got my first one March 24th. I'm not getting my second dose until July 14th, for God's sake. Will there be any effectiveness left? I mean, very clearly, what happens, the longer you wait between the two doses, the less effective it is. This is frontline evidence right here in Ottawa at the Heart Institute. These people had got their first dose, and because it's such a long delay to the second, 14 of them, almost 10% of their staff have come down with COVID. I mean, can you imagine what this is going to happen to the entire population, most of whom have got to wait 4 months for the second one? Yeah. I mean,
he was talking yesterday about entire wards being isolated.
Precisely. Precisely. And I mean, you know what? And the so-called health experts, the people who are paying these big bucks to look after us, they bloody well know this. The only reason that we're spacing out to 4 months is because we don't have enough vaccines. It's to make Trudeau look good when he calls the election sometime in June, so he can say, well, 50% have been vaccinated. No, 50% will be half vaccinated and very clearly not fully protected. Ask the CEO of the Heart Institute, for God's sake, how protected you are after only one shot. I mean, the evidence is everywhere, but they just keep blinking. No, the answer to everything, you're quite right. They've totally lost any imagination, any innovation. Let's just lock down. I mean, they've just totally lost. And I'll tell you what else they've lost. They've lost our bloody confidence as well. I have no confidence in anything that any politician here tells me. These are the politicians, the federal politicians, just in face of everything else, just raised their pay today. And not only that, you know what else, Rob, what they did today? Oh. They raised the price of beer. I mean, come on.
And the carbon tax goes up today, too.
Carbon tax goes up 33%. They raised the price of beer. They raised the price of single malt scotch. Yeah. And they gave
themselves a raise.
On the same day they announced they're going to lock us down and isolate us fully.
It's a great day for them.
This is unbelievable. These people should be hung strung, put in bed, and the skin of their skinny bums pulled over their heads. Every single one of them.
God bless you, Lowell Green. We'll talk to you later.
Over and out.
Bye-bye. Lowell Green, Pierre Bourque, after the news on City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, April 1st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -1. It feels like -8. In Smiths Falls, also -1. It feels like -5. Here's what's making news this hour. Gray zone across the province. It's coming starting Saturday. At least all indications are the Premier will announce this 28-day move coming up at 1:30 this afternoon. Perhaps more ammunition beforehand, as the Chief Medical Officer of Health will lay out the modeling numbers shortly after 10 o'clock, along with the release of the latest number of infections province-wide. Renfrew County has been spared the hardest hit from this pandemic so far, but even with lower case counts there, the acting Chief Medical Officer of Health says it's the right decision from the province. We'll have more with Dr. Cushman coming up at 10 o'clock. Smiths Falls cannabis-based company Canopy Growth is buying a Toronto-based manufacturer for an undisclosed amount of cash. This is Ace Valley, which makes vape, gummies, and pre-rolls. Canopy says the acquisition will help it build more brand loyalty. The roster of brands includes Deep Space, Cointreau, and Dojo. City News time at 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
So still ahead on the program, Richard Southern. He's our correspondent in Toronto for City News. So he'll set up the day, Doug Ford's day, and what we expect. Dan Kelly will give us the business lobby side of things. He's the president of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. We'll get some political reaction to all of this as well. Before noon, John Fraser is the Liberal MPP, Ottawa South. He is also the health critic for the Ontario Liberal Party. And Randall Denley from Post Media, Ottawa Citizen and National Post columnist, and covers the Ford government. I spoke to Randall this morning. And Steve Warne, veteran Ottawa sports broadcaster, host of the Sens Nation podcast. Sens back in action tonight. They've been off for quite some time. They're playing the Habs tonight, and it's opening day for the Toronto Blue Jays. We have that game for you here on City News. We have all the Toronto Blue Jays games on the radio, and it's 1:05 first pitch. And it's in New York, Yankee Stadium, and it's 20% capacity. They're allowing 20% capacity at Yankee Stadium. You do need to show, I guess you could call it a vaccine passport, proof of vaccination. And then they move on to play, our guest said yesterday, I believe the Texas Rangers. And Texas is wide open, and they, I mean, this is how bizarre this could be when the Blue Jays play. Is it Texas, David? Or
yeah, on Monday they'll play Texas.
Yeah, and they're it could be sold out. Imagine you could actually watch a Blue Jays game, and it'll be sold out.
It gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
It'll be weird.
Like thousands of people.
Yeah. Yeah, like a sellout crowd, because Texas is a wide open state. Yeah, there's no restrictions.
Totally back to normal.
Okay. Pierre Bourque, my good friend from Bourque Newswatch. Welcome back.
Good morning.
Yeah, we're not wide open here, though.
No, we're going in the opposite direction.
Yeah. What do you think of the Doug Ford decision? I mean, it's all been leaked to the media now. Gray zone and shutdowns and lockdowns, 28 days. What do you think of the decision, Pierre?
I think we're a victim of circumstances here. Number one, we've got a political class that is asleep at the switch. Number two, we've got a political media that is equally in bed and asleep. And number three, we're at the mercy of foreign entities, foreign governments, foreign distribution of vaccines. Look, World Health Organization this morning decrying the fact that the rollout of vaccines in Europe is absolutely unacceptable. That's where our vaccines are supposedly coming from. India is on the verge of a massive next wave. They're going to need every single drop of vaccine they can get. We're supposedly getting that stuff from there. And oh, by the way, the United States, they're rolling it out, but they're rolling it out at what cost to other countries. They're taking every last drop they can get for their own people, and you could say rightly so. But here in Canada, we're twiddling our thumbs. Yesterday, they announced that we're going to have a vaccine facility. We're investing hundreds of millions of dollars. Seems to rain from the
close
sky.
to half $1 billion. Yeah.
Rob, correct me if I'm wrong here, and I stand to be wrong, but is it just last month that COVID entered Canada? Or has it been like 14 months?
No.
Why are they announcing this yesterday?
I know. March 30, I said yesterday on my show, I said it's a great announcement. Don't get me wrong. It's much needed. I love to see this, so what I would call reshoring, but why are they making this announcement March 31st, 2021? Why wasn't this an announcement made March 31st, 2020? Right? These are the kinds of decisions that should have been made a year ago. Right.
People who want to get vaccines should be the majority. People who don't want to get vaccines should go down to the Royal Ottawa and get their heads examined. But when you think just in an abstract way, we can't get vaccines. I won't get it for a couple of months, and so I'm going to sit on my couch here and watch Blue Jays baseball. But the reality is this: people are exposing themselves to this virus that's circulating with increasing intensity, increasing impact. And it's well and fine to say, well, a bunch of people at a seniors residence in Almont or in somewhere in Quebec got sick and died. But now you're hearing about actual people that you can put a face to it. And you got to wonder, the fact that the vaccines have been delayed. We had a story yesterday. Yesterday, it was all the rage across the Ottawa that the chef owner of Laurier Dubois, one of the most famous restaurants in the National Capital Region for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
It's in Chelsea, Quebec.
Yeah, a fabulous restaurant. I've been there many times and had many great meals there.
Yeah, so there you got a case where they had to close just a few days ago because one of their staff got COVID and they had to have everybody checked. Lo and behold, the owner, the chef, he gets it, and he's dead within a couple of days.
Yeah, he's not even, and he's only in his 50s.
What would have happened if the vaccines had rolled out the way they should have rolled out back in December, back in January, back in February, let alone, when was it, 2 days ago, Trudeau announcing, hey, we're going to get a whole bunch of vaccines in June. June's 3 months ago, 3 months from now, we're in the first day of April. But yesterday, or when he announced that, was like, hey, don't worry, be happy. In 3 months' time, we're going to have a whole bunch of vaccines. A whole bunch of people are going to be dead in 3 months' time because the vaccines have not been rolling out, because the vaccines were not ordered, because the vaccines were not planned for, because the vaccines were not thought about until it was way too late for the dead.
Now, that's the political class, but you're also... you're aiming some of your ammunition there at what you said was the political media, that the political media is asleep. What do you mean by that? What are you talking about there?
The feet are out there. They're ready to be held to the fire. The flames are out there.
Right.
You just need somebody to take those feet and stick them in the fire. Stick them in those coals. They're hot and they're burning.
You think they're not tough enough on them? You mean they're not?
I think they're not. They're holding the population with a disservice by not being much tougher, and they know who they are. With few exception, they're asleep at the switch, and they know it. They're asleep. It's Mr. Somonex, Mrs. Somonex, and the rest of them. And that's a disservice here. The government should be held to account. The accounts are not balanced.
Okay. So, look, let me ask you this. What's your sense of it, okay? It's April. They say it's going to last 28 days. Vaccines, I guess, is picking up the pace. It's hardly any kind of world beat. Believe you me, it's, I look at the American numbers every day. I'm blown away. Not that, I'd trade places. The Americans don't have an enviable record when it comes to dealing with COVID-19, but, they're far superior when it comes to the vaccination rollout. They're doing more than 2.8 million doses every day now in the United States, Pierre. Every day, 2.8 million doses. And Mr. Trudeau says, well, we'll get 5 million doses in June. Right? Okay. Less than 2 days supply for the United States will arrive sometime in Canada in June. Okay. All well and good. But do you think this lockdown here in Ontario is going to be the last one?
Rob,
yeah.
You know that old adage, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Yeah. Here we are 14 months into this pandemic, and we're worse off than we've ever been. It's time to try something different.
Yeah, but what does different look like? Because I'm not sure if it was Legault or Ford said yesterday, I hate to do it, but the fact is it works. Lockdowns stink, but they work. It's kind of like it's like the Buckley's mixture, it tastes awful, but it works, I guess, is what they're saying. If not a lockdown, then what, right?
I like to point to a chart that we have on our website at Bourque.com. It tracks the daily COVID rates across the country on a day-to-day basis since the beginning, since March of last year. There's nothing you can see in that chart that points that we've been working at something that's actually worked. We're worse off than we've ever been.
Right, but if you don't lock down, then what do you do?
I'm not saying lockdown or not lockdown.
Right.
I'm saying whatever they've done till now.
Whatever they're doing is not working, right? Yeah.
Right. The mix of tools at their disposal and the way they've used them has clearly not worked. So change things up a bit.
And I should say, Rob, as of yesterday, it was. Sorry, Pierre.
Rob, let's say you're behind the bench there at the Ottawa Senators, and you're on a colossal losing streak. Do you stick with your plan, or do you change it up?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, 5,519 as of March 31st is what you have on your site this morning.
Yesterday.
Yeah, that was yesterday. Yeah. What's that, the daily case count? Was it the daily case count?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And we shouldn't forget, we're going into the gray zone. Toronto and Peel, they've been there, right, for a long time. That's where they've been. They never even went into the red zone. They've been, that's, 6.5 million people or something like that. So.
Yeah, and you notice that we're not really talking about elections in Ottawa, at least for the time being.
No, not right now.
Bad time to do that.
They wanted to, though. They wanted to. They had the winning conditions. They still have the winning conditions. And that's another befuddling thing. Mr. Trudeau, according to Abacus, is 38% in the polls. And, once again, the more people get to know Aaron O'Toole, the less they like the guy. 8-point lead. Widest lead since the last election in 2019. Widest lead for the Liberals. So, whatever you think of them, I guess you could say they have... they're poised for re-election whenever they go right now.
And if you see what happened in Newfoundland, right? Newfoundland, they just had an election, and the premier was returned. That party was returned. The Conservatives need to rebuild out there. They lost their leader. The leader actually lost his seat, his seat, as did the other opposition leaders. So you look at that if you're in Ottawa and say, all right, well, the incumbents won there, the incumbents won in British Columbia, the incumbents win everywhere, so why don't we go? But if you're in Ottawa and listen, if you're in the Liberal Party headquarters right now and you're listening to Rob Snow and Pierre right now, you got to think to yourself, well, if we go, we're going to mix a ton of people up, a ton of people are going to get sick, a ton of people are going to end up in the hospitals that are already overloaded, and a ton of people are going to die, and that's going to be on you guys.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens politically. So, when I follow you on Twitter, most of your tweets these days are still they're about the NFT craze. And, I know you're selling some of your own NFTs. You've been an artist for a long time, right? And now you're like an NFT artist, whatever the heck that means. But you're it. Have you actually sold any of that stuff or what?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. And it is a coming thing. And look, I first took my art lessons at the Ottawa School of Art when I was young.
Right.
Then when I was a city councillor, I had the privilege and I was proud to be on the board of directors of the Ottawa School of Art. Yeah. And after my stint in politics, I was back on the board of the Ottawa School of Art. So it's great. It's been in my brain. It's been in my body. And I've got a family member who did quite well as a landscape artist. So that's what I did. So I moved from oils and acrylics and charcoal to digital and now to NFTs. And NFTs, for any artist who is listening, whether it's a musical artist or a writer or somebody who does artworks with brushes and easels or digitally, take a look at NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Yeah. There's a ton of material online to figure that out, and it's a coming thing. It's going to be as important to the world as crypto was, and we're at that point where crypto was in 2013, 2014, or where the internet was back in the mid-90s.
Where the internet was in the mid-90s.
Yep. And NFTs, when you look back in 10 years' time, you're going to listen to Pierre and Rob today. You pull us out of the vault. You say, those guys were right.
Yeah. They were way ahead of the game.
Yep.
You more than me. Stephen Lecce, the education minister, David is just telling me, has announced by way of his Twitter account that Ontario schools will remain open after Easter. Well, see, to me, the big question is, are they going to come back after the break in April? I think that's the big question. Will they actually come back after the break in April? The March break, which is actually in April, right? So it's tough.
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt they will. My daughter is in high school, and she's in school today.
Right.
And she will have her Easter break, and she will be back next week. But I doubt they'll be back after whatever the March break is in April.
All right. Okay. Look, we'll talk soon, okay?
You stay safe.
Yeah, you too, Pierre. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Pierre Bourque of Bourque Newswatch. We'll go to Toronto, tee up the big news day. Actually, news conference is starting in the 10 o'clock hour. We'll bring you some of that. This is the Rob Snow Show, City News.
When it came to opening the business, because I was so young, there was a lot that I didn't know about management, financial management, management of people, all around management, I think is the word that I always come back to. I think that I always had a passion, and I knew that I wanted to create a space for people to get their hair done, but I had no idea, even having studied business management, what it really took to open a business as well as sustain a successful business. So in 2014, I was actually working with Angela Sutcliffe. She was my business coach at the time, and she was like, what's your niche? Like, what separates you from other salons? And when we started to really dig, it was the curls. It was the fact that we work with all curl types: curly, kinky, wavy, coily, which is how we identify our curl types. And then you have straight hair as well, of course. But you know, more than 70% of the world has some sort of curl pattern to their hair. And we just realized that that was not being addressed. It wasn't something we learned about in school. So I went to the States and I traveled all over to kind of gain the information that I have now to be able to share it with our clients and as well as with other stylists. So in March, when it came, I thought it was gonna last, a week, 2 weeks, through, I think it started off at 2 weeks. And I was like, cool, I have 2 weeks to just relax, that's fine. So I was actually in a position where I was not happy, so to say, but I was a little bit happy, to be honest, just because of what I was experiencing personally. Now, when that extension started to happen, it was not a great feeling. It was very uncomfortable not knowing how I was going to support myself financially. So I'm so excited about the Academy. It's something that I started, and I launched it during the pandemic. So I've been teaching for a number of years. I've been educating for a number of years. I educated at Algonquin. I've educated at Versailles Hair Academy. And I've also educated in my own space, in this space and my old space up on Greenbank. And so it was just a continuum of what, I've been doing for these years. When we have a client in our chair, it's not just about making your hair look great. It's about how do you go home and take what we've just taught you and emulate that. So now, with a world where people want to, quote unquote, be diverse and inclusive, what does that really look like in a salon setting? And for me, it looks like being able to invite any curl type, any hair type, really, because I can take care of straight hair types just as well as, I can take care of curls. And we cater to all curl types regardless of what you look like on the outside. We got you.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's a very big news day. Keep it here on City News all day. You won't miss a thing. Richard Southern is here, our Toronto correspondent for City News. Good morning, Richard.
Rob, my friend, how are you?
I'm good.
On this early Friday or whatever it is today. How are you?
Yeah, fake Friday. It's a fake Friday.
Fake Friday, sure.
Yeah.
It's Lockdown Friday.
Lockdown fake Friday. Fake Friday. Lockdown Thursday before the long weekend, which is a classic government move, right, Richard? You want to dump some bad news, do it the day before the long weekend. And sounds like that's the kind of day it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, we got a pretty good sense of what's going to happen here. The previews at one time. This is what happens, by the way, when you wrap up a cabinet meeting and you don't announce it for 24 hours. Reporters like myself are going to figure it out. And it didn't take us very long last night to figure it out, Rob.
Okay. Yeah. So go through some of the details. What you expect, what people should expect to hear from Premier Ford. 1:30 this afternoon. His news.
Well, first off, because this is kind of like new right now, there was some confusion this morning about schools. I mean, I've been reporting that schools are going to stay open, and that's accurate. Okay. The government clearing that up this morning. Schools are going to stay open. The Minister of Education, in fact, just releasing a statement. Mr. Lecce saying, quote, schools will remain open. They are critical for students' mental health and learning. So, they're going to have the Friday and the Monday off for schools as scheduled. But come Tuesday, schools are going to be open for in-person learning. So what's changing? Well, Rob, at 12:01 tomorrow morning, first thing tomorrow morning, all areas of the province, sources tell me, will enter the gray lockdown category as it stands right now. So that's going to mean that indoor dining and patio dining is going to have to close. So it's going to be takeout or delivery only for the 4 restaurants where we know have been suffering. I haven't had a haircut here in Toronto since November. I know you guys have been able to, but that's going to change because barbers and salons and personal care services, they're going to have to close, unfortunately.
You have not had a haircut since November?
Correct.
Seriously?
You clearly do not watch me on City News Toronto because it's getting to be quite a mess up there. Let me tell you, it's not good. Your producer was saying, "Oh, well, my haircut." I'm like, "Cry me a river." I haven't had a haircut since November. Okay,
it's November.
Anyways, it's not good. I mean, it is no laughing matter for me.
No. Yeah.
We're not making because I have been talking to the salon owners down here in Toronto, and it's obviously a big issue. That's going to close it all for 4 weeks, by the way, for 4 weeks as it stands right now. Non-essential retail can stay open at 25% capacity. That's a change for Ottawa, not a change for the folks down here in Toronto. Essential retail, so your big box stores, they can remain open at 50% capacity. And I should mention as well, it is Easter weekend, and religious services can happen, Rob, but with a 15% capacity indoors. Outdoor religious services, no capacity. So, in many ways, it's not a lot that's changing, especially for areas like I'm in Toronto, where a lot of the virus spread is happening.
Yeah, we're joining you, and I think a lot of people in some of the other regions, for example, just outside of Ottawa's Renfrew County, they had no cases yesterday. None, right? But they're going into the gray zone too. So it's kind of, they're applying this one size fits all, and people will question the fairness. But I think the big one is going to be on the restaurant side and on the the personal care services with salons and that kind of thing. Most of
the infections every day take place in the city of Toronto, right? And there's only 2 things changing in Toronto. Okay, the barbers and the salons, as I say, have been closed since November. They were supposed to reopen; they're not reopening. That's small change, number one. It's hardly a change at all.
Yeah.
The second is the patios were open in Toronto and Peel. They're going to have to close. So, you want to affect the areas where the most spread is happening. Really not much is happening. In many ways, this is more punitive, as you say, to the regions that are doing much better as far as virus spread is concerned. As well, Rob, what really sticks out to me is, we know a lot of spread is happening in warehouses, in manufacturing facilities, and there are no new rules or restrictions regarding industry. So that's going to, one would think, continue. I don't know what this is going to do to really get those troubling ICU numbers under control, Rob.
Okay. So what do you know, Richard, about this Stephen Lecce tweet? Stephen Lecce, schools will remain open, critical for students' mental health and learning. So open after Easter and open after the break?
Yeah,
too?
As I say, the schools will close for their, the Friday and the Monday holiday, but come Tuesday, schools are going to reopen.
Right.
They are not closing schools here. They're going to leave it open.
Going to leave it even after that spring break that was moved from March to April.
So, I mean, I'm told the spring break is going to happen as usual.
Yeah.
The plan, I hear, is for them to reopen. Of course, that's 2 weeks down the road and things can change.
Yeah.
But as it stands now, they're going to reopen, I'm hearing.
Okay. So the modeling news conference begins in just a few minutes from now, right, with the scientific people, Dr. Steiny Brown and his cohort and their charts and their graphs. And then it's the premiere this afternoon at 1:30. Is it true that Toronto may get vaccinations for lower the age eligibility for 60 plus? Do you think that's going to hapen in Toronto, 60 plus, Richard? Or
Toronto Mayor John Tory has asked the Premier to allow, and we've heard the Premier defaulting to these, the talking points about there not being enough vaccines, and in some ways that's true. So whether or not the province allows that, I don't know. It's going to depend on capacity. We're going to find out from the Premier. You mentioned the modeling data, and that's going to be really interesting coming up here in just 5 minutes' time, Rob, because this is what the cabinet looked at last night to vote on these changes that are going to take effect tomorrow morning. It's going to show ICUs, hitting a breaking point very soon. These are going to be very troubling modeling numbers, I think, coming up at 10 o'clock, Rob.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Just... because Toronto Peel, it's been in the gray zone for a long time now. When you're around town, Richard, I mean, does it look like a city, the big city of Toronto? Does it look like a city that's locked down? I mean, what's your sense of it?
So, I mean, I'm out last weekend and just driving, and everything looked as busy as it always has looked to me. But then, I go into the financial district the other day, and it's dead down there. I think it depends on where and when. Certainly the city is not as busy as it was, especially the downtown where the offices are happening. But again, we know that's not really where a lot of the infection is happening. It's happening in the manufacturing facilities, right? And this is not really going to change that. I want to know your hot take. I want Rob Snow's hot take. Is this going to be enough to get the ICU numbers under control? Are you supportive of this move tomorrow?
I feel like we're on a roller coaster, Richard. It's like open cases go up, closed cases go down, and then they get confident and they open things up. It's like rinse and repeat. And I just hope this is the last trip on the roller coaster, and that by the time 28 days rolls around, the vaccination program is made a lot more progress than it is.
Should we be doing what France is doing, where they're closing most stores, they're closing the schools, they're putting in place...
Well, you know what? That's an opinion that some of my callers have expressed on this program, that really what we've been doing is kind of a half-hearted attempt at a lockdown, and why don't you just do a serious lockdown and be done with it once and for all? It's an opinion. I wouldn't say it's a popular opinion, though.
But don't you think that's the way to get it? How else are we going to really get this under control right now, aside from the vaccines which aren't happening?
That's a question I'm putting to my listeners during my talkback hour, the hottest talk radio hour in town, Richard, right after the 10 o'clock news. We'll let you jump so you can watch that modeling news conference. Thanks for the time.
Get your haircut today. Get that little trim, Rob, all right?
All right, honey. All right. Shaggy Southern says, get a haircut. All right. Thank you, Richard. Bye-bye.
See you, Rob.
Yep. Out of the mighty 680 News in Toronto, Richard Southern. Talkback hour. Look, we're off tomorrow for Good Friday. We usually do the Friday free-for-all on the Talkback hour. My show, I'm turning it right over to you. It's wide open. Let's talk about this lockdown that's coming into effect this weekend, folks. Give me your hot take on it at 750-1310. I don't have a lot more to say other than what I said in my opening remarks, so I want your opinion. I'd certainly love to hear from business owners today and what your reaction is. 750-1310, 750-1310. After the news at 10, we'll do it for the hour on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, April 1st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, -1 degree, feeling slightly colder in the wind. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. In fact, in the province, we're going to get the latest modeling numbers in just moments and the latest COVID infection rates for Ontario shortly. Not expected to be good news there. And after a cabinet meeting last night, the Premier is set to announce a province-wide move to the gray zone starting on Saturday. With the details, City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
Indoor and patio dining will have to end. Gyms will close along with hair salons, barbershops, at least for 28 days. Most outdoor sports facilities can continue to be used with limited amounts of participants. That includes golf courses. Retail outlets will be limited to 25% on the number of customers allowed inside stores. Big box stores limited to 50% capacity. Now, Dr. Nathan Stahl sits on the province's science advisory table and says this action comes as hospital intensive care units in the province are close to being overwhelmed with COVID-19 patients.
We only seem to act in Ontario when we've pushed our healthcare system to the brink and then some. What we have right now shows that the pandemic's out of control.
Over 120 intensive care doctors from across the province have actually signed an open letter to the Premier and the Minister of Health calling for a full stay-at-home order. I'm Kevin Meisner.
Now, a local business group is reacting to the latest lockdown expected from the Premier at 1:30 this afternoon. Mark Olusky tells City News the new restrictions are unsurprising considering the most recent trends. President of the Ottawa Coalition of Business Improvement Areas adds there's an unintended consequence to the consistent changes.
Businesses lose some of their better staff when this happens. If they have to keep putting somebody on, laying them off or clawing back their hours, you tend to lose some of your better employees and the people who have helped build your business, some of the front-facing staff that customers come to know and love.
Now, he says there is a larger spotlight on personal responsibility on the messaging in this lockdown, which he says is encouraging. Now, your forecast for the long weekend. Here's City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
It was 3 degrees early this morning. That's our high for the day. A few flurries around, but we'll get into some clearing for the afternoon. The bulk of the snow to the east. For tonight, a few flurries possible. -7 for the low. It'll feel like -15. And for the Easter long weekend, plenty of sunshine. It will get milder, too. For today, I already reached the high 3.
And right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's -1 degree. Now, what about the places that have not been greatly affected by COVID-19, like Renfrew County? The top doctor is weighing in on the decision for this gray zone move for the entire province and what it means for the region. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Acting Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Robert Cushman says the move is necessary and prudent. He explains the Renfrew County District Health Unit was advocating to move into red control status while Ottawa was calling to be moved into gray. He tells me introducing additional restrictions is disappointing and tough on businesses, but it has to be done.
It's tough on all of us who have COVID fatigue, but it's the right thing to do. It's very important. We're into wave 3 with the variants, and we've got to do something about it quickly.
The doctor says there was a dramatic change in Renfrew County over the past week due to variants causing a rise in cases. He's urging folks to limit contacts and avoid coming from outside the county to prevent additional spread. Alex Gouge, City News.
And City News time, 10:05. Police have figured out what caused Tiger Woods to crash the SUV last month that sent him to hospital for surgeries. Sheriff Alex Villanueva claims investigators need permission from Woods to make the information public, though. Now, a retired New York City police sergeant says police never asked for permission like that, adding it would likely not be the case if Woods wasn't a celebrity. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Here we go again. Another ride on the roller coaster. Stuck in the loop of hell. Open, close, open, close, open, close. And now we're closing down again. So I'll take calls on any topic this hour. We would normally do a Friday free-for-all on a Friday, but tomorrow being Good Friday, we don't have a show. So it is wide open on topics today. It's 750-1310, 750-1310. But, I mean, is there a bigger story than lockdown, gray zone? I'm hoping you have something to say about it, or you can drop me an email. A number of people have done that as well. My email address is therobsnowshow@ottawa.citynews.ca. We're going into the gray zone. The entire province this time. Most of the details already leaked to the media, came out yesterday afternoon, evening sometime, but really, I think if you're honest with yourself, you saw it coming from a mile away. You could kind of set your watch to it, really. 28-day lockdown. What do you think? 750-1310. Dr. Steiny Brown is the co-chair of the Science Table in Ontario, and they're coming out with their new modeling right now. The new modeling is being released right now. We're listening into this.
It should be the last place to close and the first to open. But as international experience shows, it will make such a difference that I'll do so today. The first is to take it outside. See your friends and your family outside. Stay 2 meters away outside. And if you have to be closer, make sure you wear a mask. Second, please get vaccinated. When you're eligible, please do not put that off. And if you can help other people get vaccinated, please do it. Help them book an appointment. Help them get to an appointment. And with that, let's get into the numbers. And my apologies, when we put on the slides, the sign language translation will disappear. It'll return immediately following the presentation. Great. We'll start, as we always do, on the key messages. So the third wave is here and is being driven by variants of concern. Younger Ontarians are ending up in hospital. Risk of ICU admission is 2 times higher, and the risk of death is 1.5 times higher for patients who are infected with the B.1.1.7 variant. This is the dominant variant of concern right now. It's the variant that was first identified in the United Kingdom.
Wouldn't I love to? If it was only that easy, wouldn't you love to? Tanya, good morning, Tanya.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you? Is this Tanya, the hair?
It is. I know I'm on my soapbox again.
No,
this
that's
morning,
okay.
Rob.
I know. I was thinking about you this morning, actually.
I'm on my soapbox. So, I mean, we thought we had said that the Toronto Swans could open in gray. They've been shut 285 days now since March. So we were pretty motivated and got a little bit of confidence from that, thinking that maybe they're relooking at it. That was short-lived, obviously going to close down. I just have a few things that stick out to me about this one. I mean, if they are closing us as of Saturday, I mean, now the announcement's coming at 1:30.
Yeah.
So is that going to be 12:01 on Friday? So that all these small businesses that are closed on Saturday now have to pay the stat holiday as well. So we don't get to work on Saturday and offset the cost potentially, but we're going to have to incur the cost of paying statutory holidays to all these employees. So I'd like to know who is advising them. I really hope at the next election, municipal, federal, provincial, that we have the chief medical doctors and the scientists on the ballot, because that's who runs the show. It's not who we elect. I don't see it anyways. It seems very easy to just close the options. I mean, this vaccine talk, I think all the media and all the politicians, the new message should be, we need supply. That's it. Don't tell me how many are here. Don't tell me how many are delayed. Don't tell me what's going to be approved in a month. Don't tell me that we've got something for 16-year-olds and 20. The only message now should be we need supply, because that's the only way we get out of this, apparently.
Yep. Okay, Tanya, I got to run.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. God
Have a
bless
great
you, dear.
day. Happy
Hang in there.
Easter.
Yep, same to
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye. Yeah. She's been calling it Tanya Hill is her name, and she has she owns a salon in Carlingwood Shopping Center. And the new number is for Ontario-wide. We're going to have some local numbers for you. Case count top line number today, 2,557. 2,557. As I pointed out yesterday, when the lockdown came into effect for Boxing Day, it was announced December 21st. It went into effect, you remember, on Boxing Day. The daily case counts at that time were about 2,100. And so here we go. New lockdown comes into effect on Saturdays. We're at about 2,500. We're at about 2,500. Cameron, downtown. Cameron, good morning.
Hey, Rob, how's it going?
Oh, it's I'm cranky. I'm tired. I'm fed up with lockdowns
when you
and everything.
started this morning, I'm like, oh boy, he's on fire today.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's frustrating that we seem to be. We seem to constantly be doing the same thing and ending up in the exact same place as we were before. You know, it's been
because people are
3.5 months now of this.
People don't listen. Like, so here's what I wanted to say today. Okay, what happens to an elastic when you stretch it beyond its capacity?
It breaks.
It snaps. And exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm 1 month away from going back in the military. So I'm not the person that would ever advocate an uprising.
Right.
But it's almost like they want it. They're looking for it.
Yeah, I know. You think we're, if this keeps going on, there could be social unrest, right?
Well, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
people,
I don't know.
There's an article you guys posted on your website, on Facebook actually, about the Long Depression of 1873. And how people have had enough because there was no work and the government wasn't doing anything for them. I get that it was not a pandemic, but it's almost like a borderline template of the same kind of scenario unfolding, but now you add a pandemic to that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to come to in this country. I think we're a little too tepid and docile for it.
That's what they thought in Washington too.
And the government has been quite. The federal government anyway, with its relief programs, it's been generous, I guess you could say.
Rob,
right?
No one thought this was going to happen in Washington, D.C. So why is it impossible that this could happen?
I'm not saying it's it's impossible, but what I think the longer that it goes on, what you'll just get is you could get, say, defiance of the orders, which I think is different than social unrest. I don't really,
I fear we're about to be surprised, and that's the scary part.
Yeah,
I would like to encourage people out there that are listening right now.
Yeah.
If you want to hate something, don't hate Asians. Hate the Communist Party behind it.
Yeah, when we're critical, when we're on this program, I make it a point that when we're critical of China, I want to make it clear we're being critical of the regime. We're being critical of the government of China and the policies of China. It has nothing to do with people of Chinese origin.
Here's one more thing I'd like to add. I'm parked outside the Bronson McDonald's right now, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Great location. The staff here, because I'm a driver, the staff here is really, really keen on all the regulations. They make sure everything is done to a T. I got to give it to them. Here's where it goes wrong. There's an entrance only, and there's an exit only to the restaurant, right? The McDonald's.
Yeah.
Here we go. There's one that just came right out of the entrance where there's a giant human-sized poster. There's two of them inside that says exit only and entrance only. Everyone comes out through the entrance. Everyone disobeys the simple thing.
Yeah. Okay, Cameron, thank you.
We're in lockdown.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Signs. Everywhere are signs. We'll be right back. We're talking lockdowns today. The modeling data is being released right now, talking about patients being admitted to ICU and how they continue to get younger. That's happening right now, and then it's Doug Ford's turn, 1:30 this afternoon. You'll hear it on City News. More of your calls next at 750-1310 on The Rob Snow Show.
It started out with a small outdoor booth in what was called Artist Alley, which is actually the area just outside our store on William Street, where for a couple of years we sold our jewelry directly on the street. And then we slowly evolved to having an indoor location in this building, 55 Barwood Market Square. We then moved to another location in Place de Ville, and then moved back down here on Dalhousie Street at Irrigere in the 90s, and then back into this building again in 2000 as a collection. I do a collection of jewelry called Cirque that's mainly beaded work with a combination of semi-precious and vintage beads. And then she does a hat collection called Fanfreluche that's all cut and sewn hats in a variety of fabrics and for all of the seasons of the year. We've curated and sourced the artisans that we represent in a lot of different ways over the years since it's been, since 1985. Some people come to us since we're known, and other artisans that we represent might recommend that they come and see us. Some people we find at craft shows, or we see their work, somebody wears it in, and we go and track it down and bring it. And then some people, interestingly, are with us in one medium, and then sometimes they evolve to another. They're all Canadian and mainly local. With the roughly 50 people that we have, I'd say more than half of those are Ottawa-Gatineau, and then the rest are from other cities in Canada, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, etc. If you can afford it, go to a small business and spend some money. It's lovely when you come in and, give me a pep talk and tell me how much you love this place and you've been coming here for years. But if you can afford it, please spend some money too, because all the pep talks in the world are not going to pay my rent, which is still full rent even when we're closed. Then secondly, if you can't afford to spend money, follow the businesses that you want to support on social media. Go to their Instagram, go to their Facebook, follow their Twitter, and then retweet, share their Facebook page, like and comment, because if you can't afford to, as many of us can't right now, to do extra expenditures, doing all of those little things like that will raise the visibility of those small businesses, and hopefully for them result in some online or curbside or other business for them.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
So there is a new letter that's been sent to the Premier and the Health Minister and to Dr. Williams. It's been signed by more than 150 doctors who work in ICUs across Ontario, intensive care units in Ontario. And they want even stricter conditions imposed in Ontario, beyond the current restrictions that are going to be outlined today at 1:30 by the Premier. This is what they say in part. Even if we had unlimited ICU capacity, they say, allowing these variants of concern to spread exponentially is unethical. About 4 in 10 of patients who come to the ICU with COVID will die. More than half of patients requiring mechanical ventilation due to COVID will die. Patients who survive a prolonged ICU admission and are discharged home can have a significant long-term impact on physical and cognitive function. The growth of variants of concern in Ontario is exponential. Trying to adjust our public health response to ICU capacity will not break the chains of transmission. Countries attempting this approach face massive numbers of death and pushed hospital capacity beyond its limits. Many of those jurisdictions have more expansive hospital and ICU capacity than Ontario does. The next few days and weeks matter. We do not have enough vaccines in arms to blunt the growth. We cannot allow this virus to run free in our population and hope that the expanded ICU capacity in field hospitals are enough. We cannot rely on the public health measures framework. It did not contain the less infectious, less deadly original variant in phase 2 or wave 2, and it will not be enough to protect us from the variants of concern in wave 3. Immediate public health interventions are needed today in order to curb transmission and prevent further unnecessary deaths. As ICU doctors, we are the last line of defense. We are ringing the alarm bell. Please hear it. We implore you to act now. Respectfully yours. And then there are the signatures of 153 doctors who work in intensive care units in Ontario's hospitals. So that's the medical viewpoint from those on the front lines. Okay. Jason, downtown. Jason.
James.
Oh, sorry. James. Go ahead, James.
Just want to wish you and David and
well, thank you.
There's a happy Easter.
Thank you.
I hope people can try to focus on some of the positive aspects of Easter during this difficult time. 3 very quick comments. The first one is positive. I'm glad they're trying to keep schools open. Permanent at school at home is absolutely, it's in fact deadly for youth. Suicide attempts, etc., way up. I know that CHEO is having to cancel surgeries because there's so many admissions of mental health patients taking up medicine beds. So that's a positive comment that they're really trying to keep schools open. 2 negative comments is, I thought we learned in the fall that you don't shut down restaurants the day before a long weekend. These restaurant owners have food for takeouts and food for patios and food for dining in for a long Easter weekend, and there's going to be so much food going to waste. It's like on December 21st they gave 5 days notice, which that was because they learned their lesson, I thought, from I think it was Thanksgiving where they did the shutdown the day before. So this is just insane and terribly punishing for restaurant owners on a very important long weekend. So I really encourage everyone to really do takeout, to dig into their pockets and do takeout this weekend to help the restaurant owners roll out this excess food. The third point is churches at 15%. It is the holiest weekend of the year, and most churches have reservation systems for 30%, and all of a sudden, bang, they're down to 15%, and half the people that were planning on going on church on the most important day of the Christian calendar can't go now, and 50% at Walmart. 15% at churches, and there's been no outbreaks. I mean, Amazon has 500, but I mean, I don't understand 15% on any weekend. But could you not just have done 30% for this weekend? And I think they do have to do some things, but I think. Those 2 points about punishing restaurant owners on a long weekend and punishing churches on Easter weekend is not going to help the numbers, and it just seems to be mean, actually.
Okay, thank you, James, and you have a good Easter too to you and your family. Thank you
for very much.
Call. Yeah, always so insightful there. Downtown James. So just a few things. The city of Ottawa's health team, the top people, Dr. Etches and the like, they're going to do their own news conference at 3:30 this afternoon. So we'll have the very latest, of course, right here on City News on that. Robert Benzie, the Queen's Park Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star, is reporting that the AstraZeneca vaccine program is going to expand in Ontario to 700 pharmacies starting Saturday. 700 pharmacies starting Saturday, and it'll be open to everyone age 55 and over starting Saturday. That's according to the Toronto Star. With more than 2,500 cases today, 131 in Ottawa, 2 in Renfrew, 37 in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, and Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 7. Okay? Anne, Ottawa, good morning. You're on City News.
Hi there.
Hi.
You know, what kills me is, you know, that doctor, one of the first things you played, be very careful and make sure you get a vaccination. Yeah, would that it were that simple.
Yes.
I mean, if he wanted to say anything, why didn't he do a massive lecture of Trudeau, get your butt in gear and get us vaccines? Instead of handing out $2,000 to 15-year-olds over the summer and fall, he should have been ordering us vaccines, getting us Moderna. Like, everything should be pointing back to that, and it sickens me that he's not being criticized enough. And I saw some article. But I also agree with what James just said, because I do attend a Catholic church, but I had decided not to go anyway over Easter because I just thought there'd be too many people, so I was just going to watch it on Vision TV. But you do have to get tickets for it. And
I see. Okay.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're so careful. Like, I mean, if there was they're doing contact tracing, they've got every second pew blocked off, they're limiting the number that can go in, like da-da-da-da-da, and everybody's being very careful about going up. That's not where it's happening. And I'm convinced that still a lot of this is involving young people. Like, who in their right mind doesn't remember back to when they were 20? I guess we just better stay in tonight and not have any fun. We can't go
play crib and play Scrabble and these kinds of things.
They're doing stuff, okay? And I mean, it's pointing to the fact that you're seeing some of these young people now in ICU. You know, and I understand what that doctor is saying about what those doctors are saying about it. But the thing is, if you can't control some of the bad players, punishing and crippling all these businesses, and I mean, I'm being as good as gold. I'm hardly going out at all. And I mean, I haven't gotten it, so I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, keep it up. Keep it up, Ann.
Yeah.
Gotta run. Look, happy Easter to you too, okay? Thank you for listening, and thank you for your call. We've reached halftime here on the Talkback Hour. A few lines available for the first time, and love to hear from you. In anticipation of Doug Ford's announcement at 1:30 this afternoon, we are rolling back into the gray zone as of Saturday. 750-1310 Talkback Hour on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, April 1st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, -1 degree. Here's what's making news this hour. The latest figures from the province on new COVID-19 cases. 2,557, 23 more people have died from COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. Of the new cases, 131 are in Ottawa, 37 in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, 7 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 2 cases in Renfrew. Now, the Premier is set to release the latest measures to counter COVID, moving the entire province into the grey zone of restrictions. That will impact small business. A coalition of BIAs in Ottawa says it is understandable. Business owners are exhausted, though, and also frustrated. But the measures are hard to argue with as the provincial COVID infection rate is at an all-time high. Latest COVID modeling numbers show vaccines are not hitting the highest risk communities. Infections are hitting people younger and younger. Hospitals are being affected by the rising case counts of variants. They are more problematic for treatment. Top scientists in the province are warning the summer is looking questionable as far as getting out of this pandemic. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Doug Ford said he wouldn't hesitate to slam on the emergency brake. Sounds like that's what he's about to do. I don't know. Did he have any choice? What's the alternative? If not a lockdown, then what? Editorial in the Globe and Mail today. Quote, the variants are more contagious, more dangerous. Ontario Science Table found they carry a 63% higher risk of hospitalization, a 103% higher risk of ICU admission, and a 56% greater risk of death. So if you're the Premier, what choice do you have? If not a lockdown, then what? We have more cases. We have more hospitalizations than we did when the Great Boxing Day lockdown was imposed. So if that's what the Premier did then, why wouldn't he do it now? You could say it's worse now. The big difference, as I've been saying all week, the big difference between then and now, between the Boxing Day lockdown and the Easter lockdown, is vaccines, right? And maybe, just maybe, if the vaccine rollout in this country had been anywhere near competent, we wouldn't be in this situation. Dr. David Williams, Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health, speaking now.
Progress with immunization. We now have well over 2 million, and now we're starting with our larger volumes of great endeavor, and we hope to be able to achieve that with all the partners involved, whether it's our public health units, primary care physicians, volunteers, pharmacists, everybody on board to do what they need to do to get in this race, and that's what we're talking about today, to keep things under control while the vaccinations get caught up. The difference I see between the second wave and this wave is that the most common cases were in the over 80s. Right now, they're the lowest. That shows you the impact of our vaccination programs. Nearly complete, not totally complete yet, as Dr. Brown alluded to, and we need the rest of those people to come out and to get their vaccination undertaken. And now moving down with different age groups and successfully impacting that as we go along. So we want to be able to put in recommendations to the decision makers, and I'll be meeting or having a session later on with the Premier to announce some changes that'll be forthcoming, taking on the recommendations from the Science Table and those of our practitioners, public health experts in practice of public health, who concur that strident steps need to be undertaken to put the province at large into more of a closed-down scenario. So we made recommendations to the Cabinet, and the Premier, and the Minister of Health, and we'll be making some announcements on those later on today.
And more about those steps at 1:30 this afternoon. You can hear it on City News. Roger. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad that things are closed down again. You know, I talked to my wife yesterday there, and I'm going to make an offer, maybe to be part of the solution. You know, in our history, Rob, between all the wars we've had and the Depression and everything, all Canadians pulled together, and we all sacrificed a little bit to help the ones that needed it. So I asked my wife, would she mind if I offered 10% of my old age pension for the last 6 months, and then for the following months until all these small mom and pop businesses, and then go towards them to help them out, and even the ones that are bankrupt, to help them out and let them know that Canadians are there for them. And I challenge all the leaders at every level of government, Rob, to maybe match it and maybe ask the greater public service, maybe if they can help, maybe take a bit of a pay cut to help these most vulnerable people in this great country, you know? Because without the private sector, Rob, there is no public sector. And I mean this, and I'll leave Dave my number, and like, we're not wealthy, but we live within our means, and we're always there to help, and this is just another reason to help. And we want to be part of the solution, Rob.
Okay. Very generous of you.
Well, Rob,
what are you thinking about that, Roger?
And I wish, one more thing I want to say.
Sure thing, yeah.
I wish more Canadians would read a bit of history about what made this country such a great country. Because in my mind today, Rob, when I see what's going on and the people that are being left out, it's no longer the country that was built under those foundations of looking after each other. And I want to wish everybody a happy Easter, and if you want to put Dave on, I'll leave my number, and then we can somehow get this started, Rob. And this is not just grandstanding. This is about helping people that need help.
Okay. Thank you, Roger.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Yep. You hang on there. Let's move right along here. 10:37, Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show, 750-1310. Jeff in Ottawa. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yep.
I honestly believe everybody's blaming Doug Ford. Like, give the guy a break. He's got to work with vaccines that aren't here, and I believe the reason for that is Trudeau's arrogance and his lack of diplomacy with our G7 counterparts. You can't carry on whining to our counterparts about China while you're handing China a $40 million check. The people who are supposed to help us around the world don't have anything to do with the man. Like, imagine our nearest neighbor will lend you. Isn't that just absurd?
Yeah.
Or am I crazy?
Lend. Yes.
Yeah. I've never heard of anything such of that.
Right.
So can you imagine what the leaders where we don't know? U.S. is our number one. Can you imagine the others, what they think of them? And here you go, legalize a marijuana, bang, like that without any research. Do you think they're all pleased with that? Talking to these other leaders about President Trump in the same damn room. What are you saying about me when I go for a pee? It's serious, and that's why we don't have help from other nations. That's why we're so far behind. We should be up at the top. And I'll tell you, if we had Harper here, we would be at the top. That's all I've got to say, Rob.
All right. Thank you for saying it, Jeff. Yeah, thank you. You too. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Again, the Premier's announcement is at 1:30 this afternoon. Then there's the local announcement. That's at 3:30 this afternoon with local health officials, I gather, giving their take on what the situation will be locally. And right now, the scientific people, the head of the science table, Dr. Steiny Brown, he is outlining the forecast, pretty grim forecast. Again, the modeling usually is and has been over the last year, along with Dr. Williams, the chief medical officer of health. They're outlining how they see all of this unfolding and what measures they think should be taken. Calvin in Brockville, good morning. You're on City News.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
This is a very interesting show, I'm telling you. It's so politicalized. There's people that... why do they keep bringing up Trudeau and Doug Ford? This man has done everything he could in his power. He's ordered all these vaccines.
Yeah.
I'm getting offline here. But they're not shipping them. Whose fault is that? It's not Trudeau's fault. It's not Doug Ford's fault, or it's not...
Well, whose fault is it then?
Yeah, whose fault is it? It's the damn people that make it.
Ah, okay.
Do you have to pay more money? Is that what it all comes down to? The one who pays the most gets it the fastest. That's what it seems like to me. But you can't keep blaming Trudeau, and you can't keep blaming Ford, and Ford can't keep blaming Trudeau, and it's ridiculous.
Okay. Too much finger pointing going on, in your opinion. Too much finger pointing going on. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. Well, don't you think though that there are some serious questions that need to be asked? For example, why we would do enter into negotiations with a Chinese company and do that kind of tango for 3 months? Why would we waste 3 months talking to a Chinese company? Why would we do that? Calvin.
Is the Chinese?
Why is it that only on the last day of March 2021, more than a year later, why is it only then that the Trudeau government and the Ford government, for that matter, can get around to say putting $500 million into building a made in Canada vaccine production plant in Toronto? Why does something like that take a year?
I don't know, but this has never.
Well, don't you think that's kind of a stupid thing? Why weren't they making that decision a year ago?
Because they probably
we always knew that we were thin on domestic production of vaccines, right?
Right. Okay, we were thin on production of masks and then the gowns and all that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it didn't stop us from sending 18 tons of the stuff to China, right? Why were we doing that? There's lots of incompetence to go around, and you know what? There's lots of finger pointing, and there is lots of blame to go around. It's more than a year later, and we're going back into another darn lockdown, for crying out loud, Calvin. Well, who else are you supposed to blame except for the people at the top who are running the show?
The lockdown should have been 6 months ago. Lock the borders down. Don't be going. If you're going, don't come back.
Well, who's in charge of the borders? Doug Ford's not in charge of borders, sir. Borders totally a federal responsibility. What's going on at borders?
So
right?
I'm saying that.
Yeah. Don't blame Trudeau. Don't blame Trudeau. Don't blame Trudeau. Don't blame Trudeau. We can blame Trudeau. We can blame Ford. We can blame Mayor Watson. We can blame John Tory. Lots of people share all kinds of blame for all sorts of stupid decisions that have been made. Stupid decisions that have been made repeatedly, over and over and over again over the course of the last year. All right. Does anybody know how to do radio yoga? Do it with me right now. Om, calm down, deep breaths. Kate, are you with me, Kate? Om. All right, okay.
Yeah, I sure am.
Let's get zen. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm calling in because I heard Anne talk about blaming young people for COVID-related things lately. Yeah. And I really think that is totally an incorrect thing to do.
Okay.
If we were blaming people for getting COVID, then we should be blaming all the old people who got it in the first place. I think that the virus is doing what the virus does, and it's...
Well, who gave it to the old people?
Well, according to most people, China.
Well, it was probably... Well, I think if we're talking about residents in long-term care, the elderly in long-term care fell victim to a system of neglect, and there's lots of blame to go around there. When young, mostly female workers have to work 2 or 3 jobs to string together a 40-hour work week, they were bringing COVID into multiple places, and you had people who were sharing wardrooms, and they were sitting ducks in there, Kate, and that's how it happened.
But where were these young people going? Were they partying? Do you really know that many people that are partying these days? I certainly don't. I know a lot of young people that are very responsible. And
I don't know. I'm not a young person. My partying days are long over. I go to bed before, the sun is still up. David is 23. Let's ask my producer, David, are young people partying, David?
I'm sorry to say that, yes. Kate, I agree with some of the points you're making, but yes, there is still a lot of house parties and apartment parties and 10, 12, 15 people, little hangouts, get-togethers, whatever you want to call them. It is still happening with the under 25 crowd. I'm sorry to say, but it is happening.
Okay, well, that's really sad to hear.
Right.
But I want to make one point. I was at Costco on Sunday, and the only time I've ever seen a lineup to get into Costco was when the provincial government announced that they were coming to Ottawa to, crack down on Costco and Walmart and stuff like that.
Right.
I went that weekend.
Okay.
On Sunday.
And on that day, there was a big lineup out front, right? Because they were really controlling the crowd and everything like that. Yeah.
It was huge. On Sunday, the one that just passed, it was disgusting how many people were in the lineup. Like, in the entire Costco, you couldn't move even a foot.
Wow. What Costco was that, Kate? What Costco?
The Blair.
Oh, Blair. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And I also want to say that I don't think that homemade masks work. They really don't. Because if it did, do you see over 1,000 people a day not wearing masks? No, you don't.
No.
No. People are wearing cloth masks, and cloth masks do not stop a virus. That is science. And I don't know why they're pushing these cloth masks on people. If they were really, really, really set on people wearing masks, it would be at least an N95, because N95 doesn't even stop the coronavirus, because the COVID virus is smaller than the
I don't know. I'm no expert in that.
They're making us wear these masks, and it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah. Wear your mask. Wear your mask. Wear your mask.
Say, we can't figure out why everything is.
Dr. Fauci says it's not a bad idea if you wear 2 masks, Kate.
No, you can wear the whole box on your face. It's ridiculous, and it's so frustrating.
Well, I don't think it's ridiculous to wear a mask. That's not what you're saying, Kate, are you?
No, I'm not saying to wear a mask. I'm saying to wear the proper.
You got to wear the proper mask. Fair enough. I got to run. We're over time. Okay. All right. Deep breaths. Okay. Deep breaths. We'll be right back on the Rob Snow Show. City News.
Well, we all loved our rock T-shirts growing up, right? It was our badge. Hey, we went to this concert. We knew that band inside out. So we kept doing that and kept promoting that. What's sort of happening now is that audience is dying. I always say the earth is flat. So the 60s rockers are falling off the end of the earth. So you don't see as big a sales anymore because my audience is disappearing. What's sort of helping to promote that history is the kids are buying vinyl. And luckily we have a vinyl shop in the neighborhood here, Record Center. So what's happening is I've seen kids come in with their dad. And the dad say, hey, do you have any Beatles shirts? Do you have any CBGB? Do you have any of this? I said, well, why? He said, well, because my daughter's into it. She's wearing my T-shirt. So slowly it's coming back, right? The kids are, I think, getting fed up with the generic music that's out there. And they want to click into something that, first of all, links them to their parents, something that they thoroughly enjoy now, and maybe they're passing it on to their grandkids. The pandemic has been a couple of things, definitely hard on everybody. So much messaging that's out there that people don't understand, stats that every day, Jesus Murphy, like I'm getting a headache just reading this stuff, right? So really it was just trying to understand where we were going to go from there. The city of Ottawa all of a sudden said, everybody's got to wear a mask. You got to wear it on the bus. People were scrambling, okay? And I had, the store next door had really big windows, so I just flooded the window with masks. Well, that was the activity that saved the business. People were coming in buying 2, 3, 4 masks at a time at $20 a pop here. But my masks were so different. They were the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Queen, all the pop culture. Everything else out there was medical masks. And right, so people said, I don't want to do that. I want to show my rock and roll. So it became the new T-shirt as far as I'm concerned. Well, what I've done, I'm Hindenburg. I'm now at 1114A Wellington Street, which is next door to the Fab Gear store. And the reason I've changed names, I've rebranded the store, is because I was planning on retiring. And in December, I go, I'm not going to retire. But I've committed to changing what the store is about. So I came up with a new name, Fab Gear's Rock Shop, where legends are dressed. And essentially get that message out. I prefer, if the shirt don't fit, you come in, you try another one on. People like to feel the fabrics with clothing. It's amazing. You'll come in and go, oh, I love that. Oh, can I try this? So that's the big difference. I'm not out to make $1 gazillion. I stick the way I am, old school. I take cash, we take cards. Come on in and talk to the owner.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Erica in Hammond, you're on City News.
Oh, hi. Hi, good morning.
Hi.
Yes, I had a comment about the shutdowns and everything.
Yes.
I would just it's so frustrating to hear that everything that's been going on. I mean, the the medical advice last month was saying that we're headed into our third wave and that we needed to be careful and whatnot.
Yes.
And the politicians didn't listen to that, and they were opening us up more and more and more.
They were loosening restrictions. A lot of them were loosening restrictions.
Rather than keeping us tight and constrained.
For sure.
And I know of a specific incident where a 25-something-year-old from a red zone has traveled from Ontario out to BC, who is supposed to be in a, what's their new term for their shutdown, a short circuit?
Circuit breaker.
Circuit breaker.
Yeah.
So how the heck did she get out there? Traveling from a red zone in Ontario, taking a public flight out to BC that's supposed to be in a circuit breaker shutdown right now.
Yeah.
How did she gain
Well, I mean, it's
entry?
not like domestic air travel is banned or anything like that.
But why
right?
not?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, you know what? In France, Erica, in France, they're doing what is it? A 3-week lockdown, right? In France, they grounded all the flights. No domestic travel in France.
It's not enough. It's like bite the bullet, take the bitter pill,
Right.
shut us down completely, shut all interprovincial borders. Everything needs to be shut down.
So you're one of those people who think it doesn't go far enough.
We don't go nearly far enough.
Not nearly far
I
enough.
mean, we do these little 2-week. Okay, we'll rip the Band-Aid off in 2 weeks, but it hasn't healed. We're not.
So you think, you're thinking,
like
grocery store, gas station, pharmacy, and otherwise everything should be pretty much shut down. Then.
Give us advance notice.
Yeah.
Give everybody an extra.
Like a week or whatever.
Last week you were talking about, hey, what do you think about increasing the taxes to pay for the COVID? That we've all suffered through. And then today you announced that the politicians gave themselves a raise? Are you
Well, they're getting a raise as of today, an automatic raise, yes. It means for Mr. Trudeau a raise of $6,400.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding. No.
And I'm sitting here.
Yeah, and the carbon tax went up today, too.
I'm sitting here on disability, haven't had an increase, still living on $672.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Below the poverty line.
Oh, well below the poverty line.
Trying to survive, and the cost of toilet paper is going up because of...
Cost of everything is going up.
Everything's going up, and Kimberly has sold their product, whatever. So everything's going up, and I'm on a tight fixed budget trying to manage everything, and they're giving themselves nice pats on the backs and raises.
Yep, raise for MPs.
Where's the reality?
Yep. Raise of MPs as for today.
We'll do this shutdown. The numbers will go down. We'll reopen.
And it'll go back up.
And we'll swing again, and we'll be closed by Mother's Day again. And it's like close and open, close. And what's happening is the virus is getting stronger, and the virus is being given more opportunity to mutate, which is causing more problems.
Okay. Erica, on that cheery note, I have to move along.
Have a happy
Thank
Easter.
you. You too. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Yeah, can you imagine if you're on ODSP, you're bringing in maybe 10 grand for the year, for the entire year, David, to learn that a member of parliament, base salary, what's the base salary these days for an MP? 140, I think. Cabinet minister, you're up to about 180. Trudeau's probably between 300 and 400. You're getting a raise. They don't even show up for work most of the time. Dawn in Ottawa. Ooh, calm down, Rob. Dawn, Ottawa. Yes, sir.
Sorry, Rob. I was zenning out there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, back to semi-reality.
Yeah.
I'm rather confused on who to believe.
Okay.
Should I believe the politicians? Should I believe the federal, provincial, or municipal health people? Wouldn't it be nice if they all spoke from the same, or sang from the same songbook? They seem to be contradictory and are not in the same songbook, let alone them. AstraZeneca, perhaps you can enlighten me or some of your listeners. They used to be only available to over 80. Then, no, 60 to 64. Wait a minute, now it's under 55. So perhaps someone could enlighten this xenophobic guy on the phone. Your turn, Rob. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Okay. I don't know what that last part was about, but I'll move along here. Joseph, Canada. Joseph.
Hey there. Am I on the air right now?
You are on the air right now,
Super.
sir.
So I don't want to talk your ear off. I just kind of wanted to give my 2 cents on it.
That's what it's all about, sir. Go ahead. Yep.
So basically, I just think I've been seeing on the news that now the hospitals are getting filled and more young people are being hospitalized.
Yep.
In terms of that, I just really think we're going to have to give the vaccines time to get through all the phases. And then I think we're going to start to see a change. That being said, I do think there are some questions that may need to be asked about the vaccine rollout, just because if we look at the USA, for example, I believe the last time I checked, 1 in 9 Americans have their full vaccine. And I'm honestly not too sure, but they are vaccinating people in the millions every day. And mind you, there's probably some
I can tell you, because I look it up every morning. The Americans are vaccinating 2.8 million people a day.
Yeah, so I do think there may be some questions that we need to ask about the vaccine rollout.
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted to tell you today, Rob.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Thank you for calling in. Yep. Each MP will take home a salary of $178,900 per year, more than double the median Canadian household income. $70,336. Additional compensation starting at $6,200 for serving as committee vice chairs, deputy whip, house leader, caucus chair for an opposition party other than the official opposition. Okay, that's some basic stuff from David there on MPs' pay. MPs are getting a raise today. Good for them. Nice to be them. D, you're the last call of the hour, D. The last call of the week for us.
Hello.
Hi.
I really believe Canada has had no strong leadership since, I believe it was October 2015. And leadership is necessary, especially in times like this, because if you have no leader, then people, they just don't have any guidelines. This is wrong, this is right, and that's necessary. And one of your callers said, something just like leadership isn't necessary. Well, what about that old adage, the buck stops here? Mm-hmm. That's old. But someone has to take responsibility. And I lay at the feet of Trudeau and the ones that kowtow to him for what is happening now.
Okay, thank you, Dee. I got to run. I hope you're well these days. We're back after the 11 o'clock news. Dan Kelly of the CFIB gather his reaction based on what he knows so far about what Doug Ford is going to say at 1:30. Coming right up, Rob Snow Show on City News.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News. Now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, April 1st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -1 degree, also -1 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Just waiting for the Premier early this afternoon to announce the entire province moving to the gray zone of restrictions. Today's numbers indicate the rising COVID case count continues. 2,557 new cases in Ontario of COVID-19 and 23 more deaths being reported. Of the new cases, 131 are in Ottawa, 37 in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, 7 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. There are 2 new cases in Renfrew. The new case numbers come from about 62,300 completed tests. Now, the latest modelling numbers are out for the province, and City News reporter Momin Qureshi with the start of a statement from the Science Advisory Council.
And as the new variants spread, you will see that COVID is killing faster and younger. It's spreading far more quickly than it was before, and we cannot vaccinate quickly enough to break this third wave. This is the challenge of the new variants.
Dr. Brown painting out a pretty bleak picture of where we're at, especially with the variants of concern, specifically and here in Ontario, the one that was first found in the UK, saying risk of ICU admissions is 2 times higher. Risk of death is 1.5 times higher from that variant. He said cases are consistently going up. Test positivity is still going up, and that the variant is spreading quickly and that it's more dangerous. There are more hospitalizations and more deaths, and that the risk of people being put on a ventilator is 3 times as high, and that asymptomatic transmission is 2.5 times as high, all with the variant. He says, look, you can't vaccinate your way out of this, so people really have to follow the rules as much as possible. But he also put out a note saying that the rules have to be simple and easy to follow, and we know that there has been some complications and some confusion with the ever-changing rules that the Ford administration puts out, including new ones that they're going to administer today. So Dr. Brown really urging the province to create simple, basic rules and saying it's clear that the spread is coming from congregate settings, from people who work in congregate settings like factories and frontline workers and that type of thing, and really urging that that's where the vaccination program needs to go. So laying out their kind of a bleak but stark picture of where we are at in terms of the third wave modeling and where we are headed. I'm Momin Qureshi.
Each and every lockdown means a loss of good employees for local shops and restaurants. At least that's a message from a local business group.
I was talking to an owner of a well-known restaurant in Ottawa, and she said every time we close down, I lose another really good staff member, and it's just another challenge that these businesses have to overcome.
Now, Mark Koleski is the head of the Ottawa Coalition of Business Improvement Areas and says lockdowns are tough on staff who have their hours cut and or get laid off. He tells City News he is encouraged, though, by the fact there seems to be less blame placed at the feet of hardworking business owners, rather focusing on personal responsibility. City News time, 11:04. The provincial government poised to announce this 4-week-long province-wide move to the gray zone. Renfrew County has not been as adversely affected by COVID as other areas of the province, and the top doctor there is breaking down why increasing measures in the fight against COVID is still the right move there. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Renfrew County District Health Unit Acting Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Robert Cushman, says the move is disappointing and will be tough on businesses, but it's ultimately the right thing to do. He explains the county saw a dramatic change after variants added to a rise in cases. The doctor tells me the health unit was calling for more intense measures from the province.
We were actually advocating to in Renfrew County to go into a red. Ottawa was looking to go gray, so I think they've assessed things overall.
Dr. Cushman is urging residents to limit contacts to those in the same household if possible. Do not let guard down while on breaks in a workplace, and do not travel into the area from outside the county. Alex Gouge, City News.
And I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
1:30 is the news conference from the Premier. 3:30 is the local update from our local officials, Dr. Etches, Mayor Watson, and the like. You'll hear it all on City News here in Ottawa, where it is 11:06, and we welcome back to our program Dan Kelly, the president of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, who must have another case of deja vu. Dan Kelly, morning.
Oh, good Lord. It's absolutely that and so much more. I mean, I sit in Toronto right now, where we've essentially been in this zone. This lockdown essentially is just now being renewed here. But restaurants today will have hit 300 days that they will have been prohibited from serving a single customer in store. Gyms for 293 days. Hair salons closed for 226 days. And these are the measures that are supposed to, that we've been using for months and months and months, that we're supposed to be now going to help us save the whole province from spreading COVID.
Right. So where you are, Toronto, Peel, the so-called hot zones, or, the gray zones, we used to call them the hot zones, now they're the gray zones. What's changing? What's changing there?
Here's what's changing.
Okay.
What's changing is you're no longer in April going to be able to sit on a patio.
Right. Okay.
And sit outside. That's what's changing. Nothing else.
But hair salons, right? They've already been closed and everything.
They still are closed. They were supposed to open on April the 12th.
Oh, I see.
And obviously that will be scrubbed with the policy change that will be announced later today. But honestly, nothing is changing. And yet that's essentially my point as to why I'm not sure that these measures are going to work. I mean, for goodness sakes, we've been doing them in much of the province for month after month, and in Toronto forever.
So what do you think about this? Because, I've heard this already this morning, Dan, that a lot of independent businesses, the mom and pop shops, the Main Street style businesses are, they're really taking the hit here when a real, I guess what you would call a vector or whatever of spread is, it's distribution centers, it's big warehouses, it's manufacturing centers, places where you would get hundreds of workers congregating. Canada Post sorting facilities, for example. What do you think about that? Maybe go after, in a bigger way, those kinds of places.
Yeah, we've prioritized certain types of businesses and allowed them to stay open while shuttering what seemed to be very low-risk operations, like getting a haircut in a physically distanced salon with somebody wearing a mask while you wear a mask. That's prohibited. But the warehouse, the Amazon warehouse, with 400 cases in one case, I think 700 in Walmart stores or distribution centers, they've been allowed to stay open the whole time because they're so essential. And so in my view, we shut down in the earlier rounds the wrong end of retail. We closed the independent bookstore that may be seeing 5 customers in a day, and yet we're allowing people to crowd around the Costco book table. We're allowing Amazon to continue to have people crowded in a warehouse. I mean, for goodness sakes, these measures they're not measuring up. And even if you do support lockdowns, do people support endless lockdowns? And also, there are other ways of combating COVID. For goodness
like
sakes,
what, Dan? Like what?
We've
like
not
what?
rolled out.
Like what?
We have millions and millions of rapid tests sitting in warehouses. 2/3 of businesses have said that they would use rapid testing of their staff as a way of staying open during COVID. 2/3. The government just now, in the last week or two, finally announced to provide them for free, but provide zero help to businesses in terms of how to make this an effective strategy. That could allow the hair salon to remain open if your stylist would be tested, say, 2 or 3 times a week at their choice, and then allow you to continue to serve and help keep your business alive. Yeah. But we've not gone down that road, and I think it's out of laziness on the part of the provincial government.
Out of laziness. Okay.
I really do believe that. Look, we have not used any of the other public health approaches. We've been relying almost exclusively on lockdowns. Right. This has not been the case in other provinces. Toronto remains the lockdown capital of North America. Ontario has used lockdowns more than any province, any state in the entire continent. And we're not getting, look, I would be convinced if we had wrestled COVID down to zero.
Sure.
But I'm not seeing evidence that that's happening.
Well, what I hear from some people is that is because it doesn't go far enough. It should be even more severe than it is, more strict.
Or are we locking down the wrong things at the wrong time?
Like leave the grocery store open, leave the pharmacy open, the gas station open, and close everything else down. Dan Kelly, that's what I hear from.
Yeah, but isn't the real problem that people are just tuning out the COVID measures and going about in their daily lives? Yeah. Making decisions that are at odds with the public health measures. And is that going to be changed by this? The theory that public health officials have told me over and over again is that it isn't really the business activity that is inherently dangerous. The reason they've had to lock down businesses is to send the message to the public to stay home. But the public isn't listening to that message. And that's, I think, the gap as to why I think this is going to be another ineffective policy.
Right. Well, that's kind of in the spirit of the government-approved hotels at the federal level, that it's not really about the desire to quarantine people as it is just a kind of, or even that it might even be an effective measure. It's just about wanting to send a message to people that we frown upon you traveling, right?
You got
that kind of thing, yeah.
And what we haven't done is actually look at what kind of measures will help us bring down COVID, why we haven't rolled out rapid testing in a bigger way. We also should be looking at the vaccine strategy, as many are pointing out today, making sure that the hotspot areas are getting vaccine doses in the community. If seniors are not lining up to take them right now, for goodness sakes, let's get them into the arms of people that are working where the COVID spread is actually happening. This is so frustrating. And look, right now, I have business owners calling us at CFIB, our number that we provide help and support members. Here's what they're telling us. They're going to very soon be losing their home because their home was mortgaged in order to get their business going. They've depleted their entire retirement savings in order to keep their business alive. They've used every grant and subsidy program that exists, but it's still not enough.
Right.
The Ontario Small Business Support Grant, ironically, closed last night. So it's
closed
over.
last night, yeah.
and yet they're announcing another month of lockdowns. I mean, these are some of we're getting heartbreaking stories of families' lives that are being ruined. And I understand that the families that are affected by COVID are dealing with something far greater than that. But for goodness sakes, there's got to be, if we're going to shut down businesses to protect society, should we not be fully compensating the business owner who is forced to close? Travel agencies have shut down for month after month, have qualified for none of the government support. Dry cleaners have told us that they've qualified for zero of the Ontario Small Business Grant. And honestly, I believe the Ford government doesn't care. I don't think the Premier right now gives a crap about what's happening to small business owners, despite the crocodile tears at press conferences.
Okay. Thank you, Dan Kelly.
Anytime.
Yeah. President, Canadian Federation of Independent Business. So lots more on that story, but we're going to take a little break from it. Right? Intermission. Steve Warne. Steve Warne is going to be our distraction. Veteran Ottawa sports broadcaster, host of the Sens Nation podcast. Lots of news today, actually, about the Ottawa Senators. They're back in action tonight. It's opening day for the Toronto Blue Jays, and I believe the Masters is, a week from today. So we'll talk about it all coming up next. Rob Snow Show. This is City News.
Part of the reason I got back into this is because I am creative, and I also wanted to kind of have a fun flair, 50s vibe. All of the boxes are kind of fun names, the colors are fun, the logo is fun, and it's not just the package that I want to bring joy to people's lives, it's also the feeling that they get when they receive it, to know that there's someone that thinks of them and they're missing them and showing that they care when they can't be there. The smallest of the subscription boxes is the red box, the classical box. So you would get 5 to 7 items from the variety of categories. Those do change quarterly. However, with items that are more popular, we'll bring them back as people ask for them, or you could get them as an add-on option. And then those items will be included in the Jazzy box, the same items from the first, although they'll be in a larger size, more quantity, as well as a couple extra items. And then in the largest box, the Doo-Wop Deluxe, which is our most popular, that is a comprehensive offering of all of the other 2 boxes, plus additional. So for example, if you were to get a certain item in the smallest of the boxes, that item would still be offered in the large, but in a bigger size. So you're getting everything bigger plus an extra few items. The first thing is I look for Canadian suppliers and manufacturers. That is something I'm very proud of. I make sure that the products are safe, that they fit into the packages that we offer, obviously. They have to be the proper size and weight. I have approximately 300 items that we have so far that we can order that basically help make people's lives easier. There's snacks, there's self-care items, there's entertainment, a little bit of everything. And basically I try it and test it, and if it's duly approved, then I include it in our packages. So some of the categories that we have is we offer treats, which is of course everyone likes treats, no matter how old you are. So we have things like nuts, chocolates, different types of snacks, maybe a handmade piece of jewelry. We also include pieces of jewelry as well, occasionally. We also have our pamper items. So your pamper items would include things like your bath soaks, your specialty lotions, things like that. 2 other categories we offer are leisure. Leisure would include things such as puzzles, adult coloring books, paint by numbers, crosswords, word find, Sudoku, if that's how you say it. And we also have items for self-care and health. So masks, sanitizers, sanitizing wipes, they're all natural, non-drying, made with natural ingredients. So they're very good for everyone, especially in this time that we're dealing with.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Steve Warne, it's great to have you back on our program, buddy. You are a welcome distraction today.
Oh, boy, what a day. What a day. Nice to be here.
Ottawa Senators with some news this morning. Big signing for one of the North Dakota prospects, Steve. Bernard Jacob Docker is his name, right?
Well, you got that little inverted Jacob Bernard Docker.
Jacob Bernard Docker.
Too many names.
Too many names. Too many first names that should be last names, and last names should be first names. Okay, but a 3-year entry-level contract. That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and we're waiting on really results on the 3 other guys at North Dakota. But addressing Bernard Docker, I mean, he's in a stage where he's got nothing left to learn at school, which sounds odd. I mean that athletically, of course.
I hit that in about the 9th grade.
It is a university, after all. You can probably learn a few things there. But in terms of hockey, he's been there for 3 years. He's done the World Junior thing. He was voted in his conference the best defensive defenseman. He's at a stage now where he needs to get to Belleville and play against men. He might get a cup of coffee at some stage with the Sens this year. Okay. But that was the most likely of the 4 to come out of school at this stage, so no big surprise there.
So he's not going to step right out of the North Dakota, go right to the big club.
Never say never, but I think the smart play would at least be to get his feet wet in pro hockey down in Belleville, see how that goes. And if he looks really comfortable there, I would expect before the end of the year, they'll give him a look. They'll be cognizant, of course, of not wanting to get him into too many games in the NHL level and burn off the first year of that entry-level contract. So, but I'm sure he'll get a cup of coffee before the end of the year.
Yeah. And the Sens are hoping he's going to be like a long-term blue-chip, stay-at-home defenseman, which is something this team desperately needs.
It's something that Thomas Chabot desperately needs.
Yeah.
You need a guy, and we always make the comparison, Erik Karlsson was at his best when he had someone who could ride shotgun on that left side in his case and stay at home, mind the store, and let Karlsson do his thing. This is a right shot defenseman, and Jacob Bernard Docker, he plays the game with balance. He can chip in offensively, but that's not his calling card. good, balanced defense, and he would be, I mean, the way he draws up as a prospect, he certainly looks like, if he becomes the player the Sens hope, he certainly looks like a guy who would be great alongside Thomas Chabot, because he needs that guy right now.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Erik Karlsson, we should play that from Twitter. I saw this on Twitter. Let's play that. Erik Karlsson, former Ottawa Senator.
All right, Erik, is that the best offensive game you've ever had? 2 goals and essentially a hat trick when the game winner in the shootout?
Not even close.
Shane. I love that. And he's eating an apple at the same time. He had scored 2 goals in regulation, then he scored the shootout goal. And the reporter, San Jose reporter, asks him that question, and he just says, not even close, not even close.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I thought it was, the apple was hilarious because, and you know what, we actually magnified the audio so that the apple munching just went all over everything. And but I mean, certainly Erik Karlsson deserves a little better than that. I understand why, you know, some people perceived it as maybe a little rude, but it's kind of a rude question to ask of Erik Karlsson. Yeah. The guy's so offensively gifted. To ask that question, it shows you don't know much about hockey. You're not talking to Hal Gill. You're talking to Erik Karlsson.
Hat trick when the game winner in the shootout.
Not even close.
Not even close. No, not even close. Okay. Hey, Ottawa Senators, finally, they're going to play a hockey game tonight against the Montreal Canadiens. Give us some of the storylines, Steve.
Well, certainly the Sens have had great success against the Habs. They have 3 of their wins this year against Montreal, and Ottawa's been very good of late. Of course, they've been off for a bit because the last 2 games against the Habs have been postponed due to COVID. And the last 6 straight games for the Sens, they pulled points out of them. 3 wins, 3 overtime losses, and they probably don't get the Habs at the best of time because they kind of benefited from that recent rest. They had that unscheduled 9-day COVID layoff, and they come up right away with a 4-0 win over Edmonton. And we all know how high-powered offensively the Oilers are. The Habs allowed only 17 shots in that game in a 4-0 shutout. So Montreal, like I say, seems to be doing pretty well after that layoff. So should be a good one tonight.
Yep. I was thinking this morning, you know, the NHL trade deadline, it can either be, you know, a boon or a bust for people in your line of work, Steve. You can kind of like sit around all day waiting for something to happen and nothing happens, or there can be a flurry of activity, but it's coming up. The Ottawa Senators, they have all of these, you know, exciting young players, all kinds of draft picks, and then they've got a bunch of players. I guess I kind of look at it this way. I kind of think who would want them, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Right. So, what do you think the Sens? Do you think they're going to do anything significant at the trade deadline, or do you think it'll be pretty quiet for the Sens?
I do think it'll be fairly quiet. I think you're in a situation where all the guys of the past that might have been, you know, home run in the rebuild to trade away and bring in assets, those guys have kind of gone away. I think your best option would be someone like a Ryan Dzingel. Guys who are on expiring contracts that might still have some value for other teams down their stretch run, like Dzingel, Riley, Goodbranson to some degree. But those guys aren't going to fetch you a whole lot that's really going to be, you know, a big boon in your rebuild. What it will bring in is guys that, you know, you might get a second, third rounder kind of thing that every team is looking for. But right now it's, you know, it's going to be an interesting deadline because it's going to be a weird one for sure, because if you're a Canadian team that's hoping to beef up for the stretch run, anybody that you acquire from the U.S. isn't going to be available. They'll go right into 14-day quarantine like Dzingel did. And we know the Sens aren't in that boat. And one of the things the Sens might be doing is looking at the expansion draft. If they think they're going to have to expose a player and they believe Seattle will absolutely go after that player, maybe, just maybe, they consider dealing him now and get something for him rather than lose him in the draft for nothing. But, I think it's if anything happens, it'll be those guys on expiring contracts, I think.
Opening day for the Toronto Blue Jays versus the New York Yankees today. What do you think, Steve Warne, are realistic expectations if you're a Blue Jays fan? How do you think that team's going to do in the baseball season?
I think they're a wild card team. I think that you know, you've had some nice pickups, obviously. guys like George Springer and Marcus Semien. These are really, really good ball players. To go with what you already had, that core of guys like Guerrero and Bichette and Biggio. I think these are guys that it's, as far as a batting order, I mean, that's right there with among the best in the American League. It's just the pitching, as it always seems to be. The pitching is just not really there.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be their Achilles that prevents them from being true contenders. But I do think they have enough offense that I think they will get to a wild card in the American League this year.
I heard this morning during one of our sports updates, there was a Major League Baseball player, his name escapes me, just signed a 10-year, $341 million contract.
It's getting absurd in every
10
sport.
years,
really,
$341 million. Holy cow. That's incredible. 1 week from today is the Masters. We'll talk a little bit more about the Masters next week when you're with us, because the first round will have been completed. But right now, who do you like? DJ, I guess, he'd have to be the front runner, right? So,
I believe he is. Yeah, I think he is actually the betting favorite at this stage. I like the guy in the number 2 slot because back in November, and it's weird that we just had a Masters in November, everybody was talking about Bryson DeChambeau, and he had kind of a disappointing Masters. He was the heavy favorite then. And we all know that Dustin Johnson won that one. But I have a feeling that DeChambeau, even though he's obviously wildly well-regarded, I think that this time he will be ready, and he would be my pick right now. I mean, there's some other guys that I'd love as well, like Justin Thomas. Patrick Reed always seems to play well. So, yeah. But if you ask me for my pick, I go DeChambeau. How about you?
I'm going with kind of an outsider pick, but only because I like his game lately, and golf is a really streaky game. I'm going with Lee Westwood.
Oh.
Yeah, he's played.
Never won a major before.
Never won a major, and I'd love it if he could get. He's the guy with that albatross now, right, Steve? Like the best player to never win a major, I think, is probably him. I would say.
Yeah, there are probably other guys, but there's nobody better than that guy, and he's certainly playing well despite his advanced years by PGA standards. I like the player a lot, and I would love to see him finally get over the top and win a major. He's a guy who deserves it. Seems like a quality person. So, yeah, I'd be cheering for that.
And I'm one of the ABB people, anybody but Bryson. I do not like that guy. And he knows he plays the villain well. He plays the villain well, too. So.
Yeah, he's a different cat for sure. And but if you're just looking at athleticism and a guy that just has such a big advantage off the tee, even on guys like Dustin Johnson, like this guy is just a beast out there. If he can put it all together a week from today, I feel like he's as good a pick as any.
Okay. Talk soon. Thanks for today, Steve.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep. Steve Warne, Ottawa sports broadcaster, Sens Nation podcast host, and the Steve Warne Project on your favorite podcasting platforms. More on the lockdown. John Fraser gives us political reaction from the Liberal side. The Ottawa South Liberal MPP is next on City News.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, the 1st of April. I'm Sarah Buck, and right now in Ottawa, we've got mostly cloudy skies and -1 with a wind chill of -8. Cloudy and 0 in Smiths Falls, wind chill -5. Here's what's making news right now. Ontario science advisors say stay-at-home orders are needed to control a third wave of COVID-19, which is being driven by rising rates of the more deadly variants of concern. The Ontario Science Advisory Table makes its findings in the latest pandemic modeling data released today. Dr. Adelstein Brown, who is the co-chair of the group, says short-term case projections will depend entirely on the public health measures implemented by the government and vaccination rates. He says the province's vaccine rollout is not reaching the highest risk communities, and that is delaying its impact as an effective strategy to fight the pandemic. Ontario is expected to announce a 28-day province-wide shutdown today, not a lockdown. Education Minister Stephen Lecce indicating on Twitter that school closures would not be part of this announcement. Provincial health officials report 133 new cases of COVID-19 in Ottawa out of 2,557 new cases across Ontario, and 23 more Ontarians have died due to the virus. Elsewhere locally, 37 new cases in Eastern Ontario, 2 in Renfrew County. Leeds Grenville Lanark Health Unit reports 11 new cases, 7 of those in the past 24 hours. And over 30 pharmacies in Ottawa will be part of the rollout of giving the AstraZeneca vaccine shot to Ontarians 55 and older. The province expanding the vaccine availability to 350 more pharmacies across Ontario. Some locations will be offering the shot as soon as Saturday. Health officials are working to expand this vaccination program to public health units and working with primary care professionals to set up adding shots availability in doctors' offices. Pharmacies in Arnprior, Embrun, Brockville, Hawkesbury, and Renfrew are also on the list of locations as part of this expansion. I'm Sarah Buchan for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
At 1:30 again is the Premier's news conference. So if it starts on time, in about 2 hours. And there's bound to be lots of political reaction to it. And this is a big day. We'll shape things to come for the next 28 days. In terms of restrictions in this pandemic. John Fraser is here. He is the health critic for the Ontario Liberal Party, and he's the Liberal MPP for Ottawa South. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
What do you think about what the Premier is reportedly going to announce this afternoon? Gray zone for the entire province.
Yeah, I think that if you take a look at what we've been warned about, even from the Ontario Science Table, there's a lot of risk out there with the new variants. Our ICUs are above the highest level we've reached during this pandemic and still rising. There's a lot of risk out there, and it's important that we take public health measures. The only, not the only, but really important thing I think that has been lost is we knew that there was a great risk of this happening. We knew the new variants were very dangerous. The Science Table advised the Premier that we needed to be ready for this. And we've hesitated to make decisions, to do things like we're going to do today. They're not easy ones. But the longer you wait to impose public health measures, if you wait a day, it means you add days to the measures you need to take. If you wait a week, you're going to add weeks. The important thing in the pandemic is to move quickly. And to be ready to do that, and the government struggled to do that. Often they're telling us, we're going to do something. On Thursday, we're going to tell you something on Monday that's going to happen on Saturday, and it's a pandemic, and you have to move way more quickly than that because of how effective the virus is at accelerating if you stand still.
Do you think they're moving too slow?
Yep.
Do you think they should have done this earlier?
I think they should have moved earlier on public health restrictions. They should have been more cautious about loosening some of those restrictions, because that's where look where we are at right now.
Right.
And now it's a more severe, longer lockdown potentially.
Yeah.
And it's it's just these things aren't easy, but you need to be ready to act quickly and communicate clearly as to what you expect people to do. And, it's what it's going to come down to today is the measures are going to be one thing, but it's up to everybody. It's up to all of us to do the things that we've had to do, for the third time.
Right.
And that's the only thing, that's the way we're going to protect each other.
Right. Here, we just had Dan Kelly on the line from the CFIB, who makes a good point. Toronto and Peel have been in this gray zone for a long time, a lot longer than we have here in Ottawa, right? Mm-hmm. And they're still the hot zones. That's where most of the cases are. Well, so what makes us think that whatever they're doing in Toronto and Peel is going to work all across the province, because it doesn't seem to be working there? What about that,
here's
John?
Here's the challenge in Peel and Scarborough and Northwest Toronto.
Right.
The fire is burning the heaviest there, and the government hasn't got the vaccines there. Like when they rolled out the pharmacy pilot, they didn't have pharmacies in any of those areas. In those areas where COVID was, where we have essential workers who work in meatpacking plants, who work in Amazon, who work in the post office, who live in multi-generational households, and the virus is really spreading there. And you needed to get the vaccines there to slow. The vaccine's the thing that'll help you manage it, just like it did in a long-term care. So you've got to get to the right arms, the people who are the most vulnerable, and the communities that are most vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And if you look at Toronto, Scarborough, Peel, Northwest Toronto, and even today, Adelstein Brown, who's the
Dr. Steiny Brown,
Steiny Brown, he said the vaccines aren't getting to the most vulnerable communities, and the challenge with that is that really affects your ability to control the virus. Like if it's burning out, the more it burns, the faster it burns. So it's, that's all part of the vaccine rollout. I was surprised that when they announced the pharmacies, they didn't go into those communities, because that would have been the quickest way to get vaccines into people who needed them in those communities.
Well, in fact, now Robert Benzie from the Toronto Star says the AstraZeneca vaccine program is going to be expanded. 700 pharmacies to everyone age 55 and over starting Saturday.
In some pharmacies, they have some pharmacies.
Well, 700 of them. I mean.
Well, no. Some pharmacies new pharmacies on Saturday, and it's a good thing. Those vaccines are coming, and when I'm over 60, when my slot comes up, I'm happy to take AstraZeneca. The first vaccine is the best vaccine. So look, vaccines are on the way. There's more AstraZeneca coming in. It looks like Johnson & Johnson will be coming at the end of the month. Vaccine shipments are going up. So we just have to do the things we need to do as a community to get people vaccinated and keep us safe while we're doing that.
The opposition, and I understand it. You're there to poke holes and criticize, and makes your own suggestions about how things could be handled differently. But how honest is it to say there are hundreds of thousands of doses in freezers?
Well, look,
hundreds. Okay, there may be hundreds. There may be hundreds of thousands of doses in freezers.
Yeah.
They're spoken for, though.
Well, there are hundreds of thousands of doses that haven't been administered, and if you take a look at...
Well, they haven't been administered because people are waiting for their appointments, right? But they are booking their appointments, John.
If you look at, for instance, I think Alberta's, is at 91% of the vaccines they've received, they've administered. Ontario's about 77%. And there's been a struggle with the vaccine rollout. The appointment booking was... website and phone line was 2 weeks late. So public health units were using their own thing. And then there was a struggle with making that work. And we had a problem in Ottawa last week where, there's a problem for a day and a half and nobody told Ottawa seniors, don't call, we have a problem, which would have been the right thing to do. So the government's, struggled with a smooth vaccine rollout. And it's really important that it's focused on getting the vaccines into the right arms, in the right places, and so that's the thing that we need to focus on. The vaccines and freezers, they're going to go up and down. The government has to be more efficient about how they use those, and more effective is, I guess, the best way to put it. Get it to the right places, get it to those communities like what happened in Ottawa. They went to the 10 or 12 communities right off where we had the highest spread of COVID-19, and that helped everybody.
Sounds like you're at the legislature right now.
I am. The bell's ringing.
But do you have to run? Or?
No, I don't have to run. No,
okay.
The bell's now are half an hour. We don't have to stand up to vote. We walk through a lobby.
I see. Okay. I want to ask you, as an Ottawa resident, about we followed up with an interview yesterday. There was a front page story in The Citizen yesterday about the Ottawa Heart Institute and the president and CEO raising concern about the 4-month interval between doses. So this is Dr. Thierry Messana on the Rob Snow Show yesterday.
We have been in this for 1 year, okay? This is the time where we need to support our staff and the healthcare workers and show them we do everything we can to protect them. You don't send soldiers to war without proper equipment. So when we have these people in hospitals, they save people's life. You know, they go to the hospital to work to save others people's life. You need to make sure they have the maximum protection. And if a second dose gives you 10-15% more, give them the second dose.
Okay, what do you think about this? We're spacing the vaccine out 4 months in between doses, and he has staff at the Heart Institute. They're down for the count, John.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
What we will have to. First of all, I think the decision to stretch out the second dose was one that was thought out well, and is going to provide the maximum protection to all Ontarians, all Canadians. What the NACI is looking at right now is where is it that we should look? Where is not delaying the second dose not optimal? Or present risk. So, for instance, my mom's 89. She's had her Moderna vaccine. Her next appointment isn't to July 7th. So, I'm interested in what they're going to say in terms of what her level of protection is for people who are immunocompromised, to people who I hope and I think they're looking at, to people who may be, because of the nature of their work, exposed to high viral loads. And so we have to take that advice. And listen to that because I think the advice has been good. They've been very prudent and cautious, and I think that
I don't know. Dr. Messana said they're working off-label is basically what he said yesterday. That's what he told me.
Yeah,
he is not impressed, John. I can tell you that.
Dr. Messana, I think, is doing the right thing for his staff. And when we look at the situation that we're in, and one of the things that we're trying to do is create a level of herd immunity and protection for everybody. And other jurisdictions have done that. They've done that with success. But what it means, though, is we have to look at, just like they came out with AstraZeneca, there was a caution, so they're looking at it. We have to always continually be looking at, okay, are we doing the right thing for everybody? And are there cases where it may be, as they say, suboptimal to use it in this way? And I think we're going to get that advice. So I'm personally very interested in that because as I said, my mom's 89.
Let me ask you. We only have a minute left,
Sure.
and I got to keep you on a tight leash here, John. John Fraser, Ottawa South, MVP.
Good luck.
Dr. Steiny Brown said today schools should be the last to close and the first to open. Schools open basically make sure it's the last thing you do before you close schools. What do you think, John? Very quickly.
It comes at a big cost. I think he's right. I think it's good advice. It's at a big cost to families, a big cost to kids, and we have to be very cautious. Our kids are our priority.
Right. Okay.
And what's best for them is, the thing we have to focus on, and we have to do everything we can in schools to protect them, to try to keep those schools open. And when we look at the measures we take in the community, we got to start there.
Okay. Thank you, John Fraser.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. John Fraser, Liberal MPP, Ottawa South, health critic for the Liberals. Randall Denley, Post-Media columnist, next on City News.
I wanted to give gifts to my volunteers, so I started making, I knew this is a skill I had, so I made a chocolate that had culture, a cultural based with a teaching, because culture here is not just the little part, it's the large part, it's the fundamental part of our organization. So then we started doing, just little programs, and we sell a few at a fair. And then we started getting contracts. People were starting to enjoy the chocolates, and started getting more and more contracts all across Canada. Then we decided to become a social enterprise, and we were able to create 2 jobs. And Val is one of our chocolatiers, very talented. We were able to help her with employment.
We started just with a little bit in the kitchen, doing a little bit of chocolate together, and next thing it's just kind of taken off. And it's great because I love to be creative, and we get to create a lot and make up stuff, and it's just I just love it. It's just great that we get to make money back for Wabano, and it's helping me out, and we're helping just everybody out, Wabano and everything.
We met a very socially conscious business owner being around town, and we decided to partner, because beans and chocolate, coffee and chocolate are sort of created the same way, and there's and they're very one origin bean, so it was a good pairing together. And it's been a fantastic partnership for both of us.
I was fortunate enough to get introduced to Pierre, the head of Wabano Fine Chocolates, through a local networking group. And I was completely intrigued by the social enterprise that she was running, and then I looked at what we were doing, trying to support local business and supporting local communities, and it was a perfect match, and it's been fantastic ever since.
We make every batch by hand. We temper it by hand to get to the consistency it needs to be to make a good chocolate. And one of the best, also wonderful things we did, we've connected with Ed, with being around town, and our coffee bars have been an amazing hit. So we're really excited about the connection with our coffee.
And City News,
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Author and columnist Randall Denley is back with me here on City News on the Rob Snow Show. Good morning, Randall.
Good morning, Rob.
Well, we're about a little more than 2 hours away from Doug Ford making it official. Apparently not calling it a lockdown, they're calling it a shutdown, but let's face it, more restrictions coming into effect to be made official at 1:30 this afternoon. What do you think of it?
I think it's depressing, I think it's demoralizing, and I think he probably has no choice.
Okay, what do you...
Which I guess adds to the depressing and the demoralizing.
Yeah. Well, why do you think we are where we are?
Human behavior. I mean, people do what they do. They're fed up. They're tired of lockdowns. I think people are pushing it a bit. I have not been out too much, and when I'm out, I'm usually in the car. But you do notice there's a lot more traffic on the roads, a lot more people in stores, including stores that you don't have to go into. But people are just tired of this, and they're being human, and they're trying to interact a bit with each other. The weather's been good. It's gotten people out. There's a lot of factors, I think, that have contributed to this. And the variant obviously is a big piece of this, as we were told that it would be, because it is more easily transmissible. So things that we might have been okay to do a few months ago, we're not okay to do now. And it's hard to know what those things are exactly, just like how contagious is this thing. There's a lot that we don't know. And so I think people are acting based on their human desires and probably based on information that's a bit outmoded too.
Okay. You've been very anybody who's read any of your columns throughout the last year, you're very critical of the Ford government using this, blunt instrument of lockdowns. Are you cutting them any slack this time around?
Oh, just a little bit, as I have in previous lockdowns, because they generally lock down where we've reached a point where we we can't do anything else. But I think the problem with what they've done throughout all this is that it's never really been very well targeted. What do we close down? We close down the things that are easiest to close down. Okay, are those the things that are causing a problem? Either we don't know or no are the usual answers. If you look at something, Rob, like that Amazon warehouse in Brampton, which has had 600 COVID cases, that was never shut down by the province. Finally, the local public health did something about it. I'm sure it's not unique, but there are workplaces that are called essential, and I'm sure they're, essential to Amazon. They're allowed to operate even though they're operating unsafely, and how much have they contributed to the problem? I mean, I see these places paying no price whatsoever, whereas somebody's little shop or restaurant, well, they've been closed down repeatedly. Now, I think an important, tiny safety valve in this latest lockdown is that stores will still be able to operate at reduced capacity, so it doesn't shut off the sector completely, but it makes it tougher for everybody. And I think that's the right thing to do, though. We still have to live a little bit. I know the people who are the greatest enthusiasts for lockdown say, what you need is an absolute lockdown. Everybody stays home.
Yeah.
That'll fix it. You see, if we have a lockdown, then we won't need a lockdown. It's a brilliant circular argument. And say, well, okay, well, what happens when we end the lockdown? Well, then things will return to normal-ish.
Right.
But we'll all be healthy and well. They say, no, we won't. It'll just pick up again, and then we'll have another lockdown. So I think the real hope in this that people need to stay focused on is that a lot more vaccines are coming. We're getting them into people at a reasonable rate. At least now we can see a point where most people will be vaccinated, and this thing is going to start to recede. In previous lockdowns, that was just a hope. Now it's an unfolding reality. So I think that's the one thing that people might want to grasp onto right now and say, okay, it's going to be 4 weeks, they tell us. It's not going to be great, but it's not that different than what we're doing right now. Let's just be smart about it, wait to get our vaccines, and we're going to come out the other end of this. So I think that ought to be the Premier's message today.
Okay. You mentioned vaccines. I'd be curious to have your take on kind of the sniping that's been going on back and forth for quite some time now between Ontario PCs and Trudeau Liberals over who's doing a worse job when it comes to the pace of the vaccination rollout. What do you think, Randall?
You can see it's really picked up now with the PCs are really turned on the Liberals after an extended period of time when Ford went out of his way to be nice to them when they probably didn't deserve it. I'm with them on that. When people complain about the slow vaccine rollout, well, look, we've got hundreds of thousands of doses we haven't administered this instant. Okay, but if you're doing the rational thing, which they are doing, and saying, well, make an appointment, come in, there's no use having that unless you can say, and we've got the vaccine for it. I mean, you could have a big 2-day blowout or something, and then what happens to your whole system? Okay, no, we won't do anything for a week because we used up what we had. I think they're going as fast as they can with what they've got. I do see people saying, oh, look, it should be running 24/7. Where would you get the people to do that work would be my number one question. And is somebody really going to show up at 3 a.m. to get vaccinated? I don't think so. You can see from the decision a few days ago to move the vaccine age down to 70 that they weren't getting as much response as they would have thought. So they had more vaccine at that point than they could give to people over 75. Moving down to 70, quickly those spots were filled up locally and across the province, I'm sure. But that's the other part of this, is that not everybody's jumping to get a vaccine, and people are very skeptical of AstraZeneca. So it's a complicated picture, but I don't see the province dragging his heels. I see a situation where we have to make difficult and maybe bad decisions about vaccination dose gap and who gets it. A lot of people can make a good case for it.
Right.
Should teachers get it? I could easily be persuaded of that. You know, we had the head of the Heart Institute a couple of days ago saying, look, you know, not all of my people have had it. We're worried they're getting sick.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of people who should be getting it who aren't necessarily getting it right now because we don't have it. And we don't have it because Justin Trudeau said, I've got this. We've got a huge, portfolio of vaccines coming. We've made the deals. It's all locked down. It's not 100% his fault that it's not coming through because a lot of countries are saying, no, wait a minute. We want to get all of our own people vaccinated before we send something to you. And of course, we have no industry here. Now we're developing one, though. So maybe a little late, maybe not, but it's frustrating as a Canadian. You say we couldn't look after this basic need on our own, so we have to go begging around the world for little bits and pieces of help. That is not on the provincial government in Ontario or any other provincial government. That's 100% federal. So if people want to complain about vaccine programs, you know where to look on this one, I think.
Okay. 1:30, again, the announcement on the lockdown, shutdown. Thanks for your take this morning, Randall Denley. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, you too, Rob.
The Rob Snow Show.
Tune in weekdays starting at 9 on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. Oh, no.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.